Hello?
Hi,
Hey,
how's it
what's up,
going?
caller? How's it going?
Is this Tim?
Yeah. Actually, I'm doing fine. You asked me first, but first I want to say thanks for calling. I can hear you just fine. Why don't you speak and let's make sure that the
Okay.
audience can hear you? Oh, yeah, they can hear you.
Okay, I can move my mic. Is that better?
No, we're good to go. You don't even sound like you're wearing a mask, but I'm
All right.
not I'm not going to rat you out for that.
No, I'm wearing a few masks actually.
I wear one mask on the back of my head for every mask on the front to balance out the tug on my ears because I don't want them to stick out like Baby Yoda, like most people.
Baby Yoda, what's that?
You know, Baby Yoda, it's those ears that stick out sideways when they wear the masks too tight. I know you've seen
Oh,
it.
okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
I take it you don't fall for any of that stuff.
No, I fall for women actually.
Awesome, awesome. Well, okay, so let's start with this. We started off tonight talking about this whole week actually, about the world having a script. And we've been pointing out that it seems like Stanley Kubrick has had a very dominant role in writing the dominant narrative of the 20th and 21st century, which is 9/11
Huh.
and even COVID. We think he actually wrote the script for that, for 9/11. What do you think of that?
Um, well, shoot, I couldn't tell you. I don't know much about Stanley Kubrick, and I just joined the stream a few minutes ago, so I couldn't tell you.
Gotcha. Well,
But
I'll start with this though, because I know it's probably a new idea, but it's been rumored for decades that he's the guy that filmed Apollo 11. So we're just taking it one step further
oh yeah.
and saying, well, he also seems to have had a role. And here's the thing: in multiple movies of his, you find these scenes that appear to reference 9/11 and even Ground Zero in very specific ways. In the movie The Shining, and in another movie as well, Doctor Strangelove. But anyway, they could be coincidences. Are you
Yeah.
familiar at least with all the predictive programming around all these major events?
Oh yeah, of course. So I'm here.
Right, exactly. That's what
Uh,
pulled me into it. So, what's your stance on the major psyop of the day? I guess that would be Biden. Is he a hologram, a clone, Jim Carrey in a mask,
what?
or
You
do you
said
actually?
Biden is a hologram or Jim Carrey in a mask?
Well, I'm not the one who asserts he's Jim
Come
Carrey
on, be real.
in a
Be
mask,
real with
but
me.
I'm not the one who asserted this. There are many people who don't believe that Joe Biden is Joe Biden.
Well, then who's Joe Biden then?
That's the question of the day. So, at a minimum, have you at least seen have you seen any of the footage of Joe Biden where he appears to be, I don't know, like a little computer generated?
um, I mean, I've seen a lot of digital anomalies, but of Joe Biden specifically, no, I'm not. I don't really look into that stuff too much, to be honest.
Okay, well, here's the
But
thing.
I
There's
just like, yeah.
there's a story that came out 2 days ago, international story, and I don't look into this stuff. And it goes like this: this is some NBC coverage, and as Joe Biden was approaching the podium, the top of his head was visibly gone, like the top of his head was flat. So what do
No
you?
way.
Yeah, I mean, millions and billions have probably seen this. It happened. So the question is, what are we looking at here? As a video editor,
Dude,
green screen.
hold on, I haven't seen that. So should I search Joe Biden flathead or something? What do I type? What do I type in?
Type in Joe Biden's head disappears. Literally, that's what I just searched, and it
Mm.
came up with the IBT Times. And yeah, I mean, his head literally disappeared, and it's consistent with a green screen glitch. Too much contrast. Poor planning on behalf of the PSYOP department at the White House.
Shoot. Uh,
Now, well, look, beyond this, though, beyond.
well, my Google is censoring that. I'm not able to find it.
Okay, well, beyond this, there's other things that have led to this speculation. So, for example, his earlobes, when he was vice president, dangled freely. and now his earlobes are firmly attached to his face, like he's got Gorilla Glue on them or something. So earlobes don't.
Oh yeah, the genetics. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, earlobes don't just attach to your head over a period of 2 or 3 years, do they? I don't think so.
Well, mine are not attached, and I was born that way, so I would say probably not.
So people are wondering what happened. Was he replaced? I mean, there's all kinds of speculation about this. So I didn't start it. Then there are people who go further and they actually think, I don't even want to go here, but they think that the entire presidency of Joe Biden is being filmed at a movie studio at Castle Rock or something, which, like I said, I don't want to go there, but there are wishful thinkers out there who do believe that.
Yeah, I see the flat head. So yeah, I know Joe Biden doesn't have a flat head, and I see a picture of him with a flat head now. I see that. Um, I guess the reasonable explanation, if I were to be someone from the media, I would say, oh, that's just just an anomaly of camera stuff. But it does actually look like a different person. Like if you look at his face. Oh
Right.
shoot, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I remember bright blue eyes before he had these deep coal black pits. And that's another change people have noted.
Hit.
Hey, I got a question here.
Wait, what did you?
His eyes used to be blue. Now they're deep black pits. Like if you look into his
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah. I know.
if you've ever looked at somebody wearing a hyper-realistic silicone mask, one of the tells, and you see this under spotlights, under heavy lighting, is the eyes are too far recessed into the head. And I think Biden has that very masky
Oh
appearance.
yeah.
Now, someone here in the chat
Well,
is asking a
yeah. I mean,
question. I have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt, but someone's asking here if you voted for Biden. You don't have to tell us.
no, no. I voted Don Blankenship.
Okay, okay. How
He's
many votes did
the
he get?
taxpayer party. I think he got about I don't know 10,000 or something. No, I was actually a troll because I didn't want to vote in the federal election. I was there for state and local, and I ended up voting federal because there was like 7 different candidates or something that I could vote for, and
Right. Well,
so I voted for just the weirdest one.
that's probably more responsible than putting all your hope in some centralized leader, whether it be a talk show host or a hologram. So I commend you for that. It's not as bad as just regularly pulling the lever every 4 years.
Yeah. No, well, I didn't grow up in the time when you pulled levers. I just pushed a button on a touch screen. But yeah,
Well, I assumed
I didn't want to vote for the two. Yeah.
I mean I assumed it was a lever like in a casino when you play the slots because it's just a big gamble and it's all a fraud. But I never actually pulled a lever when voting.
Yeah, well, I mean, the federal election is for sure, but the state and local elections, I mean, you can actually make a difference in your county. But for the federal elections, it's just I mean, it's like what is that game with the three walnuts and they move them around? That's pretty much what a federal election is. You think you're getting one, but you're really getting screwed.
A shell game, sure. I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
And at this point, though, I think politics has been rendered to, in my view, something of a participatory soap opera and a sort of entertainment, and a very, really kind of perverse sort of entertainment because I don't really believe
Oh
that it's
yeah.
connected to reality in any significant way. They're all spellbound by the media, the politicians, that is. They live in the world where everything on the news is real, and every other day there's an asteroid about to kill us. Are you concerned about asteroids? Do you wear a
Oh yeah.
helmet?
Oh yeah. No, I'm very concerned about ass hemorrhoids. Very concerned.
So do you
I
not?
wear a helmet all the time.
So you believe in them? I mean that's the thing. If they
Oh
got
yeah,
if you
for
got
sure, man.
you believe in space rocks that might at any moment just basically puncture a hole in
Oh
the
yeah.
sky. On what evidence?
Sorry, I think there's a little bit of a delay, but yeah, asteroids are very very dangerous. There's big ones, and some of them have gold, and we want to mine some of them. And SpaceX is launching up dudes in special shiny suits to go mine them. Yeah, dude.
Well, there's one in particular. It's called Apophis, named for the god of chaos, that is supposed to skim by next week. And they said that one's positively going to kill us in 2029. I mean, this is science telling us this. And what's more, they're now telling us that the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs actually punctured the atmosphere, created a vacuum, and sucked the dinosaurs off the surface of the Earth and ejected them onto the moon.
No way. No way. They're on the moon now? Can I
Dinosaurs,
look up with a telescope and see them?
astropaleontology.
Fossils?
Astropaleontology, it's a new
No,
field that
astropaleontology. That's a real thing? Astropaleontology is a real thing?
it is. Oh, hey, by
Okay.
the way, let me go ahead and share something with the audience listening. 833-311-1984. It's open phones, and we have a caller queue. So you can go and call in at any point, and I can add people in or whatever, but it's not going to require that you dial multiple times.
Yeah.
So you're the first one to test it out, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I was waiting. You were saying something about you were downloading, and I was like, oh, shoot, I'm going to call.
Yeah, I downloaded Ring Central
Why
to
not?
replace my old system because Skype has failed me consistently, and all I want to do is to be able to interview guests and have third-party callers actually, call in and add their own voice to the mix. So we're going to start that pretty much starting next Monday.
Yeah. I mean, that would be cool if someone else called in right now. We could have, a couple of people talking with you. I think that would be nice.
Right, exactly, exactly. And if somebody has a very specific challenge they want to give to the audience, they could take questions like that. So that's going to be the format moving forward because I do want to make use of all the tools at our disposal here. And I kind of think that debate is usually wasted on people who are poor moderators. So many flat earth debates have just devolved into nothing. What's your opinion, by the way? How do you feel about the spinning ball?
I mean, I like to troll a lot. I like to troll people, but the Earth is observably and obviously flat. That's what obvious. I mean, I think everyone in here thinks that, unless there's someone who doesn't. But
No, I rarely
I
come
was just
across
trolling
anybody.
about the asteroid.
No, I mean, same here. I rarely come across people who are like diehard globe defenders. I talk about the space station all day long, and nobody calls in to say, hey, I'm offended. I want to correct you on this. Nobody ever does.
I'm offended.
Well, we have a...
I did actually call in with a question, though.
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, ask me anything, by all means.
I just I wanted to ask you about Crow 777 because he was one of the guys that actually helped me seriously consider that the Earth might be flat, and I remember you dissed him at one point, and I just wanted to ask you about that.
It wasn't that. I mean, I understand why so many people would find Crow 777 to be a gateway drug. It's a very attractive and interesting theory. And I'm all interested in new ideas and observations and observational data, but I don't care for scientific fraud. And in this case, I have a hard time believing that somebody with 25 plus years experience in photography with thousands and thousands of dollars invested into it wouldn't know the difference between a basic flaw or camera error and there being an entirely separate celestial body. And aside from the second sun thing, there are so many alternative explanations for the lunar wave, and I've heard so many squirrely ways to get out of it. And I'm like, you know what? There's a point where it becomes an act of almost like faking UFO sightings for views. And so I just think that the lunar wave phenomenon is something of a con. And there's really no other way to put it. Because either one of two things. Either it's a con. Well, it's a con in that there are so many things wrong with the proposition that he's recording the moon and he sees it wave. And so something happened to the moon. Well, Occam's razor says check your camera first. And I can name a number of ways that the exact effect has been repeatedly replicated. And these are ways that are easily explained. For example, if you're close to an airport and you get these planes flying over, you're going to have disturbances in the atmosphere, wingtip vortices, which will cause the moon to give a wave effect if you're recording it, among other things. But anyway, that's just one thing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's a respectable view. I mean, I don't know about the plane thing. I think he talked about that, but I think your view is respectable, and I'm not gonna hold anything against you on that.
Well, he did give an answer for the wave thing. Because, see, there's a couple of things. One, you could have a vibrating cell phone in your pocket leaning against your camera tripod. That's one thing that could cause the moon to wave like that. Another thing, though, as I said, wingtip vortices. But his explanation was that would only happen if it were a bow wave from a supersonic jet, which just is not true. It would be true with any particular plane flying over. So anyway, it's an interesting idea, but again, my question is, how could an experienced cameraman continually make that error? So I forgave that one, but then when it came to the second sun, I saw Mick West duplicate that with a slide from a microscope and an iPhone and a rubber band. And I'm like, okay, what's more likely? We have another sun and nobody noticed until the guy who noticed the lunar wave, or it's something wrong with the camera. And sadly, most people are willing to go for the more, I guess, exciting answer.
Yeah. No, I definitely see where you're coming from. And like I said, it is respectable. So I was just wondering, do you ever, you have a Discord, right?
Yes, we have a Discord, and I think there's about 420 members in there right now, and about 42 people active at any moment.
Yeah, I was in there. I was in the South Pole. There's also, I don't know if you'd be interested in this, but there's a 24/7 Flat Earth Discord. I don't know if you'd ever want to go in there and talk with people in there, but I do that a lot. That's where I've been hanging out a lot mostly recently.
I actually joined it. I haven't really got too engaged, but maybe I will in the future here. I think the topic there's still a lot to it that needs to be explored, and a lot of arguments that need to be kind of fleshed out. And we do have somebody. Have you seen this guy, Mark Gauld, the Scottish guy, who's raising money to send a flat earther to space?
Mark? No, I haven't.
Okay, well,
I had to pause my stream because I'm on my cell phone, so I can't see your stream right now because I'm on my cell phone, but because it paused it when I called you. But,
oh, I see.
But yeah, send me or show a link or something, and I'll pull it up.
Link,
or just tell me what to type in.
Well, his name Mark Gauld. You can actually find it at flatlunacy.com. It's a crowdfunding campaign that this globe earther is setting up to send a flat earther to space, $250,000. And so this is really where the thing needs to go. So I will have to go into this 24/7 Discord or wherever all the flat earthers are hanging out, because it's going to take a little bit from everybody to make it happen, to send, who knows?
Probably. You don't have to go there.
I'm not.
I'm not long. I was just wondering if you heard about it, but
I've heard about it. I think I've been there a few times, because they used to have a live stream on YouTube that corresponded with it, and you could just listen in. I don't know if they're still doing it, because YouTube, if you say anything about the Earth not being a ball, they censor you for QAnon. Everything is now QAnon.
Wait, you don't think the Earth's a ball?
No, I don't think it's a ball. I don't know it's a ball, I should say, and I hope it is, but I don't think it is. But regardless, stating that opinion on YouTube gets you branded a QAnon terrorist.
What? QAnon terrorist? What the fuck is that?
Haven't you paid attention to the mainstream media, how they have been covering the news in the last few months? We had that individual in the Viking costume run into the Capitol. They said it was a terrorist attack, that he was sent by QAnon. QAnon is synonymous with radical terrorist in America today. If you haven't been noticing, that's...
Yeah. I'm a little bit familiar. When 3/11 happened, I was a little bit interested in QAnon, because they were saying, oh, everyone's going to get saved because that's why we're getting locked down to lock up pedophiles. I was watching it a little bit, but now it's just a bunch. I don't know. It's like you put a horse in front of you put a carrot in front of a horse, right? And you think you're going to get the carrot, but you never do. So I stopped watching.
Oh yeah, look, I gave the whole idea every single possible opportunity. We gave it till election. The day after, Sidney Powell released the Kraken. Then they said, no, it's going to change on the 20th. Trump's going to be inaugurated. One thing after another. They even said January 19th, National Popcorn Day, QAnon. Going to release all the rescued children, beat up the the deep state, execute them or whatever, on TV no less. So yes, we were all kind of left holding our popcorn with nothing to watch.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a lot to watch, but the popcorn is kind of stale.
Yeah, it's taken too long. March 4th was the day. That didn't happen. There was like 8 or 9 people at the DC right there who were, I guess, hopeful, but that was about it. And some are still holding out hope for 320, and a few people. In fact, did you get your second crisis or your third crisis actor check?
No, I just got the second crisis actor check for 600, and it was a card this time. It wasn't a check, unfortunately.
Okay, because I heard a rumor that the new crisis actor checks were signed by Donald Trump, and the QAnoners have taken that to mean he's still in charge. Everything's going to be okay. Trust the plan. But
Yeah, trust the plan, man. This is what. Oh god.
well, I think it's kind of I think it's kind of interesting though that they're willing to go there and trust it because it's like, wait, you started this mission to rescue the kids in 2015. You failed at winning again in 2020, so you have to wait till 2024. You're going to be rescuing a bunch of teenagers at some point. Like it's just taking too long.
Yeah, yeah. The teenagers are going to be adults by that point.
Then yeah, exactly. You got to rescue them from what now? Not the deep state, but their crappy minimum wage jobs. I mean, it's taking too long. I've lost interest.
What do you think? Do you think Trump's gonna what run another 2 terms or whatever? Since he got impeached twice and both of them he was acquitted.
I'm so dejected by the low quality of writing on the world stage. I'm actually expecting his son or his daughter to run or something just gross like that. So no, I don't think so. I think that this was the final season of The Apprentice,
Yeah.
and that's about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm not familiar with The Apprentice, but I'm sure Donald Trump is an apprentice to some sort of something like that.
The Apprentice was his reality TV show. I never watched it. I knew people that watched it, but the fact that he's a reality TV show star and then he becomes a president, it's like it's not even that big of a leap. But anyway, Kanye West, someone says, will probably be the next president. I kind of feel that one too, sadly. Kanye West.
What? No, there's no way.
Wait, it's too
If
late.
anything, it'll be Donald McDonald. Who is that? Donald McDonald?
Oh, Kyle McDonald.
Ronald McDonald? Who's
Kyle
that guy?
McDonald, right? The
No,
rapper with
Yeah, Donald McDonald.
the rapper with the dreadlocks that looks like. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. The guy.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, that guy. It'd probably be that guy.
I wouldn't be shocked, but Kanye's already ran. That's the thing. So it's the Overton window has been
No, well,
opened.
nobody likes Kanye. At least I don't. Sorry.
Right. Well, maybe you're not what the new America looks like. I mean, the new America is going to vote for Kanye. I can already tell you. All right. Hey, thank you for testing out the phones. I got a number of people who want to get into the topic of Stanley
yeah,
Kubrick. So stay listening, though, because you're going to want to hear this, because we do think that Stanley Kubrick is one of the Illuminati's top directors. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, all right, see, man.
Okay, I have to rate that call a 5 stars to Ring Central. Again, I'm using Ring Central. It's for conference calls. It's going to be very helpful starting next week. We're going to be doing a 5-night-a-week live stream call-in program, very structured, organized. And we're going to do this on a schedule, so we don't have anybody questioning if we're live or not. Everybody will know when to call in. Okay, so today is still Sunday. It's Pi Day. Again, you know, Pi Day, 76-year-old Stephen Hawking died on a Pi Day. Einstein was born on a Pi Day, died at 76. They do these things to connect these figures in your mind so you think that there's some part of some kind of like a lineage or some kind of, it mystifies them, in other words. But let's go ahead and go through some of the notes here. Starting with this. I didn't know this until last night. It turns out that New York City, Manhattan Island was actually discovered on September the 11th. So September the 11th, 1609, Henry Hudson, in his ship, sailed into New York Harbor and discovered Manhattan Island. On September 11th, 1941, the groundbreaking was held for the Pentagon. And of course, 60 years later, on September 11, 2001, the terror attacks struck the Twin Towers in Manhattan and also the Pentagon. And both of these events, by the way, were foreshadowed by Kubrick. So the first would have been Dr. Strangelove, with a low-flying missile with Captain Kong flying the thing very low to the ground. That scene contains foreshadowing to the Pentagon attack. The Twin Towers are foreshadowed in The Shining, in the scene where Danny is on the tricycle in the hallway speeding towards the twins, who represent the Twin Towers. The way they're hacked in the midsection where the planes hit, very obvious. And there's another scene where they're in a room and he's throwing darts, re-emphasizing the projectiles. And the twins are standing beside a phone booth that says Bell. And that connects to the Bell building right there by the Twin Towers. And then we now have the Millennium Hotel, the black obelisk, based off of Space Odyssey 2001, right there at Ground Zero. Just a few coincidences with Kubrick, and we're going to go into all of those. But one of the points I wanted to start off with is that the Twin Towers were always ritual props. They were built and taken down as part of a ritual, a psychodrama. 33 years from the date of their construction, they're pulled down. And this is part of a 2-into-1 Space Odyssey 2001. That's the meaning of it. In fact, after the two were torn down, Trump was behind an initiative to have them rebuilt as a single World Trade Center Phoenix. Again, the correlation between the number 33, the Phoenix, and a conflagration, a fire, the Burning Man. These are symbols and scenarios that are replayed on specific dates on the world stage, as you'll see, throughout this Metascript. And it shows us that there is a coded language, and it's revealed in the patterns. And the media knows. If they give us too much information, we start to know patterns. One of the things I wanted to also bring up, too, is that the Space Needle has been given as much attention as the Twin Towers in movies, as something that will be destroyed at some point in the future, in a significant event. One other thing, I believe that 2020, hindsight's 2020, I think that the script that they wrote for bringing about the new age, the new crown, new corona, it ended in 2020. 2020 was the end of the world, so if you're still here, congratulations, you survived. It didn't end entirely, but the old world ended, and we're in the new one. And the end of the world being in 2020 was heavily insinuated throughout much of the programming. And it primarily has to do with emergencies. And that's one of the topics we'll get into today. I want to deconstruct the world stage by focusing on emergency codes in mainstream entertainment. You know the expression, order out of chaos, the motto of the 33rd degree Masons. Emergency is what happens. This is what they create. They create an emergency because their new order is emerging on the backs of the chaos. They create the chaos, they burn it down, they build back better. They create chaos and restore order. It's an ancient con. So the Metascriptors create these emergencies, all of them fake. So I've been finding more information. More people have been digging into 9/11 predictive programming than ever before. And it's beyond just pointing it out, oh, that's just a weird coincidence or that's eerie. Now it's into, all right, well, clearly there's a script here. And this has been for, well, decades. In fact, Trump was written into the world stage Metascript easily as early as 1958, when he was 12 years old. These characters are written for the world stage. I'm also going to be doing a separate study. I mean, there's quite a lot that we're going to be doing in this vein, because we're kind of looking back. In fact, I do have a link to the mind map to kind of show you where we're coming from if you're new to this. But let's go ahead and scroll through my notes. I don't want to get too lost. Oh, also, daylight savings, don't forget to set your clocks on fire. Time isn't real. Okay, the 9/11 attacks. One more thing about them. So the planners of the project, to rebuild the Freedom Tower, they built something that was 1,776 feet. Isn't it odd that 1776... Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, how's it going? It's Lickety Split.
Just going through the Metascript further into the program. So are you on the same sheet as me in regards to considering that maybe Stanley Kubrick had a role in the 20th century and beyond as far as writing the news in advance?
Yeah, okay, so yeah, I've only had a little bit of time to like think about it. The most I can comment, because I hate fucking movies and like I don't watch them. I try to watch The Shining and I like fell asleep. So, but the whole fact of, so the buildings were built, like there's a 33 in the story there somewhere, right? Where they were built 33 years before they went down or some shit like
Correct,
that,
correct.
right?
The same year that 9/11 became an emergency code in the U.S. And that's the pattern here, emergency.
Right, and so that, yeah, and that gives the credit, more credibility for me at least, like the way that I like to research topics and look into things. You know, that means that there was a plan in place at that time already. So yeah, you could have somebody like a Kubrick or whoever start to go ahead, hey, you got 33 years to plan this. And he's like, sweet, 33 years, like, great. And yeah, sure. So I look at it more like that. Like, I haven't really got to look at the movies and all that kind of shit.
Well, I haven't
yeah,
read,
but wasn't he a pedo too?
They're difficult to watch. I don't know about that. You know, he was probably an adrenochrome junkie like all directors. But I was in a film studies course for a semester as my major, and I didn't realize the significance at the time, but maybe they don't even. But the curriculum had us go through all of Kubrick's film in order and treat these things like they were great works of art. Clockwork Orange. I mean, I found these movies to be trashy and disturbing, all of them. Even Eyes Wide Shut. So it's the most boring orgy scene conceivable, and it doesn't even make sense because they took out key scenes that he wanted in there. But anyway, my point being...
yeah, I'm so glad I didn't go to college. Wow, that's crazy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, that even makes it like, it kind of like compounds the whole thing that you point that out. But yeah, it sounds totally plausible. I'd have to look more into it, but like I said, I just can't stand movies, and getting through The Shining was just too hard. I was calling... I noticed on Twitter that the vax is being referred to the jab. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have noticed that. The jab, which I think is meant to take the association away from it. It's a sales pitch. It doesn't sound so bad. It's just a little jab. It's not a punch, right?
And I thought it was just kind of weird, because then I thought it made me think about Jabulon, which is like some like god of some people. Apparently the OTO uses it too in some rituals.
I think I might have heard that name.
Yeah,
I might have heard that name before. Jabulon. I think I might have heard it in some dank Masonic lodge one night under torchlight. Jabulon. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. So I don't know, man. It just like jumped out at me, you know, when I see that kind of shit, especially on Twitter, and it's just like catching on all quick. Everyone's like, the jab, the jab, the jab. I'm like, oh, the Jabulon.
Found it.
But,
Found it.
Yeah,
You're right.
this one.
Okay, so it's actually one of these names where they've combined a few different gods with it. So it's like Jehovah, Baal, and On, or something like that. Absolutely, that's their three-headed.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, so then also I was going to mention, I saw somebody talking about this possibility of vax passport. So like, I don't even know that's going to be like available, because like HIPAA laws, right? Like that would conflict completely with HIPAA laws as far as privacy, and having like a vax passport. It seems like, that's a public official that you're showing your passport to. So like that would be like an immediate like violation. However, I guess like in this fucking world, they can just make a law and just be like, no, it's not making it public.
No, I kind of think it's an authoritarian's like best hope. They're hoping they can make that happen. I think it's kind of idealistic on their part. At best, maybe they can give you a vax discount on your ticket, but no, there's no way they're going to be able to get that far. And competition.
Yeah, and that like it's. I was going to say with compulsory too, like it's just not going to happen. Like they don't have the manpower. Like they could never just like forcibly sterilize or vaccinate or sterilize everybody. They just couldn't do it. They have to. So like I kind of noticed like right now with the news, it's kind of going from, they try to scare everybody into it, with COVID when it started. And now it's kind of gradually like moving into like, well, we are not going to be able to do that. And we can't force it on them. So they're trying to go with coercion, which, like that's how driver's licenses were kind of installed on everybody in the early 1900s. This is all just coercion. It's like a common method of the government. But that's because they hold the whole money thing over the state. So the federal government's just like, we'll offer you money, and then you take it, and then you just install our laws. And that's kind of like the last caller, one good thing he mentioned that he was talking about. So everyone can look this up. It's called vertical federalism, okay? And so that's not how it's supposed to be, but that's where it's the top down. It's the pyramid structure, right? So vertical federalism, that's where, so they have the money generator, so now they can just coerce and bribe the states to take on whatever laws they want. This is how you get your money. All your states are broke. They all rely on the federal government for that. So, I mean, that's just what they're doing with with this vaccination shit, too. They're going to try that. It probably won't work. Apparently, like 50% of the country hates vaccinations.
50?
I just heard that. That could be fake, too.
No, it's got to be like 10%. I mean, maybe it's like 50% might be philosophically opposed to anything mandatory. But as far as the anti-vax, like people are like truly against it and who are scared of it, the ones who think that Bill Gates wants to kill them, they're in the small minority. And it surprises me because I get on these mainstream sites just to do research, and most of the articles are like, people can't wait for the Johnson & Johnson vax. They're lining up for days. And I said this in advance. There's going to be vax junkies. There's going to be vax virtue signalers showing you their vax patch, their stickers. Like, I voted, I vaxxed. That's happening right now. So, and it doesn't even get you any freer.
No, for sure. I know. And right, like vaccination requirements, like coercion, whatever you want to call it, it's always been a thing, like for schools. Going back hundreds of years, they've done these mass vaccinations before. So, like they can do it and they will do it, and they, going to school usually requires it. And so, like I was saying, it's like getting a driver's license. It's all just, it's just a fucking mess, dude.
Let me ask you a question. Okay. I don't, because like I happen to think that any partisan fear is probably fake. It's just weird to me that one side fears the virus, one side fears the vax. So I have to ask the anti-vaxxers, do you think that, vaccines are bad for animals as well, like your pets? And also I want to ask, are vaccines a bigger threat than obesity and cigarettes and alcoholism? Because if we're all going to start crying wolf...
Yes, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so here's my thing. I separate my personal view versus my public view. So my public view is, I'm with you, like, don't attack the vax. If you're going to attack anything, attack, like, is the virus even a real fucking thing? You would actually do better defending yourself in court by doing what you were talking about, go after the whole foundation that they're trying to lay down, that there's a virus and a pandemic. You're way better off that than trying to be like, no, I don't like the vax, it's bad, it's unhealthy, whatever. They're like, whatever, like we already decided, and that's what a state does. So, like, that's how that works. My private view, like, I don't even like taking a lot of, like, ibuprofen. I like to drink beer and shit, though, and so, like, I try to replace my... what I consider pollution in my body with something else. Like if I'm going to pollute my body, I'm going to do it my way. I want to like have a fucking beer or something like that, smoke a little weed.
Okay,
but
like let me
put
put
it
it this way.
Pharmaceuticals.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Okay, let's start with this. So if I were to ask somebody, would you, for example, would you consider the symptoms of heavy drinking, maybe what it does to your liver cells? Would you consider that to be worse or equivalent to what Bill Gates' vax is going to do? I'm trying to get some figure on it. I want to get some notion, like how bad is it going to be? Because 6 months ago...
Right, okay, right.
6 months ago, it was going to kill us all.
Well, go ahead.
Well, 6 months ago...
it's a cost-benefit analysis. Yeah.
But, I mean
you can only do that yourself. Yeah.
But
go ahead, sorry.
Here's the thing. No, 6 months ago, they said the vax is going to kill us all. And now no anti-vaxxers say that. They all changed their script overnight. So now the script is, no, it might do damage to some, or it might sterilize the next generation. So I kind of don't know when the goalpost moved, but I find the fact that the goalpost moved to mean that maybe there's nothing to fear.
Yeah, well, vaccine comes under a special sect of pharmaceutical, and it's like back, like the Greek word is origin for pharmacy is pharmakon or pharmakos, and it means literally like a poison or a drug or a poison, one of the two things. It could be whatever happens, I guess, like whatever happens after you take it, that determines if it was a poison or if it was a drug. But that's like the old definition where it comes from. So that's actually a really interesting topic that people should really look into. But I don't know. I agree with you as far as like a movement. Movements are always, they're always taking over. As soon as if something becomes a movement, it's gone. Like at that point. So I've always been a pusher of that for sure. So I agree with you there. But
right. Well, it became a movement, like a fad. All of the people who were marching in the streets saying the Earth is flat, all of a sudden they did a swerve into 5G towers are going to kill you, into the vaccine's going to kill you, and that became their principal issue.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for the government-sponsored anti-vax hysteria to pass so they can go back to saying the Earth is flat again.
Yeah, I guess I just read something about 5G.
Wait, hey, let me hold on a second here. Let me go ahead and I got to answer somebody's question in the comment. Tim Hamby says, "Where does either one of these dudes get their info?" Okay, I don't believe in the virus. I think that the virus is sin. It's a superstition that they use to control minds. I don't believe in viruses. And I think that the fear of the vax is a massive hoax, and it helps perpetuate the existence of the virus in the minds of the fearful. So no, I'm completely outside of.
And if I can answer, and if I can answer him, I get mine. I usually, as most people know, if they listen, I read case law. Like I go back 100 years and 50 years or 200 years, and then consider all of it together. And that's where I get it from. I can provide some cases. You can email me if you want, or he can go fuck himself. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I got you.
That's pretty much all I had. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, you're all entitled to your opinions. I think.
Oh yeah, have you heard of? Yeah, have you heard of the Hilaria?
No, what is it?
I guess that's coming up. It's some strange old Roman celebration that starts in March 24th. So I don't know if I'm not saying anything's going to happen or anything like that, but yeah, it's usually like I don't want to say it on your thing because I don't want to get it all get your.
Look, I had 3 YouTube channels shut down last week. I'm over COVID. I'm over COVID. I'm over vaccine phobes. I'm over 5G phobes.
Man.
But I lost 3 channels because I'm saying this. I may not agree with the things that keep you up at night, that keep you scared. I may not believe in them, but I will defend your right to speak about them online, even if it costs me a YouTube channel.
All right, well, I'll just say it's a god, and it's one of their celebrations, which with Gnosticism and O-Fight Gnosticism, it usually involves ritual sacrifice or self-mutilation, and sort of like a transgendered celebration. So everyone can go look it up and they can see. But yeah, anyway, so that's coming up. So we'll see if anything happens.
Spring break.
Anyway, I think that's all I got. Yep.
All right. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping me test out the phones, by the way. So yes, looking really good here. Valley56 says, I defend your right to be afraid of anything. Precisely. No, I think that it's pretty clear to me that when there's something that only half the side of the political spectrum fears, it's probably not real. Like, and this is such a funny thing to me. I think it's funny that the left is terrified of global warming. They shiver when they see the sky, like scared little dogs at an approaching thunderstorm. And on the right, they laugh at them. Like, you guys are afraid of climate change. But then they see a plane, and they panic because it's chemtrails. It's like, put on your chemtrail mask. And the left laughs at them for believing in chemtrails. And I'm like, wait, you guys are both laughing at each other for being afraid of what man's doing to the environment, specifically the skies. You're both pointing fingers at the same thing, basically. But you're on opposite sides of the fence. And I'm wondering, why don't the climate change activists and the chemtrail activists unite? Line up behind Greta. And I guarantee it's the same agenda at the top of it. Fear of the sky. I think that the governments of the world like to keep human beings programmed with certain fears that have, well, proven efficacy, managing us, primal fears. And one of them being, of course, fear of the sky. That's why all the kings of the gods are always thunder gods. Tim and Vic says, talk is cheap, YouTube channels are cheaper. Well, I'm also trying to set a record at this point. We have, and there is a record of it, something like 91 channels that have been struck down. Now, if they only get 2 strikes, we just put it to the side, and then it eventually comes back. And so the ones that are on live right now were channels that were probably alive a couple years ago. And we brought them back from the dead. Okay, so I have to bring this up to you as well. It's just a picture. So Super Recognizer, one of my favorite YouTube channels, has come to believe that Stanley Kubrick employed the actor Buzz Aldrin, not just for the moon, but for, well, rather it's the other way around. He would have starred in this other one first. He's suggesting that Buzz Aldrin is actually George C. Scott. So let's start with that. George C. Scott. You know, he's in the movie Dr. Strangelove, working with Kubrick. And then Kubrick does the moon landing in '69. And it is believed by some that George C. Scott is in fact the same guy. Now, of course, there's a few differences, but this is what Super Recognizer gets into. Specifically, though, when you get into the timelines, that's when it matches up. When you get into their birth dates and the things people have said about the two of them. So that's kind of another related rabbit trail to the conversation here about Stanley Kubrick, because you could argue that Apollo 11 was one of the most transformative pieces of cinema ever created and the most influential worldwide collectively. Like, this was a foundational myth to the new paradigm about, you know, outer space and man becoming multiplanetary. So here's just a few pictures. I'm comparing the two. And it's not completely obvious, although there was that incident where Buzz Aldrin was making these weird faces behind the back of Donald Trump, and people were kind of fixated on it. And when he makes these faces, you get a better look at his skull structure, and I can kind of see where Super Recognizer is at here. Knockout Bear says Mission Impossible stuff. Right. Well, I'm suggesting it's consistent with the overall patterns we've seen. And also keep this in mind. Later this year, Tom Cruise is going to the space station. Tom Cruise starred in another Kubrick film, Space Odyssey 2000, Eyes Wide Shut, which came out in 2001. So there's a connection between Space Odyssey and that, just in the year. And Eyes Wide Shut came out on the 30th anniversary of Apollo 11. So there's another connection to Apollo 11 in the space program. And what's more, again, Tom Cruise was the star of that movie. He's going to the space station this year, which makes me think that Kubrick has some kind of a part in that as well. I mean, obviously he's dead, most likely. I mean, some think he faked his death in '99 so he could focus on September 11th. Which makes sense, but I have no reason to think he's still alive. I'm just suggesting that the Metascript that he authored or worked on continues on into the future and past the next 9/11 style event. All right, let me go ahead and go through this other document. We went through this last year, but I have to gloss through it. It's called Coincidence Theory 113. And this explains the overall idea, this Metascript concept. And the key to understanding it, I think, is noting where it aligns with the calendar. So you could cherry pick things all day long, but when it's aligned with something as objective as the days, down to the hours, to the minutes sometimes, in order to express some symbolic resonance, then more than likely you're not dealing with a mere coincidence. Posel says, what is the elite's obsession with cryogenics in Vanilla Sky? Well, see, in Vanilla Sky, he's 33 years old. This is Tom Cruise playing this character. David Ames. He is a publisher of a very popular magazine called Rise. Now, Rise is another one of these terms. It relates to the number 33, the phoenix, the burning man, rising from the dead, the dying, resurrecting character that this David Ames is portraying, because he dies at the age of 33, and 3 days later he comes back. But you find out at the end of the movie that he was actually in a simulation. He was cryogenically frozen, and his mind was in a simulation, and he wanted to wake up and come back to the real world. So his death at 33 was followed by a rebirth. All kinds of Gnostic Christian subtext. Of course, Tom Cruise, his name, phonetically similar to his co-star Penelope Cruz. Her name, C-R-U-Z, but both names to me are suggestive of a cross. In the movie, she played the role of Sophia. Sophia is the feminine counterpart to the Gnostic Christ figure, so it makes sense. And so again, 33, comes back from the dead, and this movie, I think, does tie in to his future role at the space station. And what he's doing there, this is what I think is going to happen. He's filming the first movie in space. That's why it's a big deal. So the Apollo 11 was the first movie in space. Of course, the public thinks it's real, but it's something of an irony that of all people, Tom Cruise is up there, and they're calling it the first movie. I mean, just the layers that they put over reality. It's just a screen over a screen. But once he pulls this off, this mission, it will forevermore, I think, cement in the minds of the masses the existence of outer space. You won't be able to say the space station is fake anymore. Once Tom Cruise goes up there, nobody will believe you. And Tom Cruise is weirdly connected into all of the same types of symbolism you would expect. Do a search on how many times he divorced his wives at the age of 33. Or how many movies he's done. Or how many years elapsed between Top Gun and the sequel. Vanilla Sky's release date was December 14th, 2001, 33 days after September the 11th. That's also relevant for a few reasons. Okay, one of them, he's a jumper. He jumps off the top of a building at the end. It's one of the main points of it. But at the very beginning of the movie, he's running through New York, and it's empty. Like, the streets are empty. And so people compared it to after 9/11, sort of, but I think it was more reminiscent, or rather prescient. It was foreshadowing coronavirus. The timing of that movie's release, 9/11, foreshadowing coronavirus. We've seen this pattern. Donnie Darko, too, a movie heavily encoded with symbolism, has quite a lot now pointing to not only coronavirus, but also Donald Trump's presidency. And then you have the Tom Cruise deepfake videos trending right now. I have a feeling that those videos are trending right now in order to saturate the search results. So when he actually goes up there to do this movie, and the usual critics, like people like you, call it fake, you're going to search Tom Cruise, is it fake? And you're not going to find anything about what we're talking about. George Orwell says, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. That's why they're burning all the books and censoring all the channels. It's an attempt to control what just happened. They control the interpretation. If nobody was here to say that nobody died or cried at any of the school shootings, I mean, find me one if you want to, but good luck. That these events of the last, well, since the inception of media, all of the major transformative psychodramas, all the major events in our history books that you're taught that are important and critical for your understanding of the world, these things are all staged. broadly speaking. I mean, there might be some real stuff happening here and there, but the big macro picture is ultimately staged. And we have plenty of evidence, I think, to support this. So, coincidence theory 113, I have a mind map that goes along with it, examining a century of predictive programming and what it says about our future. Predictive programming is real, but what does it mean? How propaganda is used to give us our history as we live it. Infinite Plane Radio, do you think history is scripted in advance?
Yes, I do. This is Lickety Split again. I had a couple more things I just remembered I wanted to mention and see what you thought about. But yes, I absolutely think it's scripted in advance, of course.
One question on the side before we go in. What about individually?
Go ahead.
So do you think there's predestination individually?
Oh, I saw a great quote that it said a person's only goal in life should be the fulfillment of their own destination. And when you put it in that context, then yes, I think that's it.
Okay.
You're here to do something, and then you're gonna die.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, go on with what you were saying, because I think we've
Wait,
made the case.
Where did that question come from? What do you think? Tell me what you think.
Well, I think that the simulation theorists are taking it too literally. I think the world stage is actually more than a metaphor, and so I have no idea. I'm not really sure yet, but I'm convinced though that the bigger pictures are authored in advance, and I think the world ended last year, and that the new world actually started, and we're already in it, and there's nothing you can do to stop the progress.
Yeah, I can jive with that. Yeah, and I just think that there's just way too much fear of death also with everybody. It's beyond fear. It's they know. It's like a simulation of death, basically. People don't even really think about it, or it's just straight to fear. But anyway, oh yeah, so we were talking about Kubrick a little bit and how he's a pedo. And then that made me think about Tracy Twyman and Cappy.
Yeah, why don't you break down or explain?
Yeah,
explain Tracy Twyman for people who don't know, because I was not really paying too much attention to her work until I talked to Crater Earth USA, and he drew my attention to Disneyland and its seeming relation to what could be an exit from the world stage. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in this Tracy Twyman character.
Yeah, she's all right. So I mean, I'm still on the fence of if she actually is dead or not, which a lot of people are. But so she was getting into a lot of the Pizzagate stuff. And anyway, but this is where it became interesting to me, because recently this summer I was doing a lot of road tripping around southern Utah and Arizona. And that's actually where Cappy died, right? You went to go visit the site, didn't you? Was it off the 40, right?
Pretty much. I mean, he died on Route 66.
Highway 40 or some 66? Okay. Oh, it was on 66. Oh, even better. All right, so that whole area, that's called Kaibab, and there's a lot of, it's just desert and rock area. But so I was out there a lot this summer, just camping out and hanging out, whatever. And I was driving, and I saw the Best Friends Animal Shelter. And they have 2,000 acres out there, maybe more. And so they're a charity. They're a nonprofit charity. But here's the thing. And this was on Wikipedia maybe a year ago or 6 months ago, and anyone can go look it up. If you look up Best Friends Animal Shelter, before they were that, they were the Process Church. And the Process Church of the New Millennium. So they just changed their name from that to the Best Friends Animal Shelter, and it even says it on the Wikipedia. That's all you got to do. Just change your name, become a nonprofit, and you're good to go. Anyway, they run a big ass like I said, 2,000 acres, and I actually went out there with my fiance, and we were going to take a tour, and like one of the founders was going to be there, and so I really wanted to do it, but we didn't actually do it. Maybe I was kind of scared, like they were going to murder me or something. But anyway, so this is all happening. Like this whole location is all just maybe 100 miles from where Cappy was found dead, and then Tracy Twyman tried to go to some campground, and she was investigating all this stuff at this campground in the same area in Arizona, and that's where it was. It's barely that far from Best Friends Animal Shelter, and this is the Process Church, and probably not a lot of people know what the Process Church is. It's kind of tied in with Manson, right? So
okay, so let me
some
bring
people allege that
let me bring everybody up to speed. So basically, you're saying that the place where Cappy died was being investigated by somebody who was also following his lead as far as what he was telling everyone about Hollywood and child trafficking and all that stuff, Satanism in high places. And strangely enough, the area where she disappears, where she was investigating, near where he died, happens to be a place that is owned by the Final Process Satanic Church from the 60s.
Yeah, they're right in that area, and they like if you ask anybody, like in Utah, so you can put little symbols on your license plate. I live in Utah right now, just randomly. It's whatever. But anyway, so
don't tell the
like
local. You're letting the local satanic cults know now where you're at.
I know. I shouldn't have freaking said that. I'm kind of scared. I know Timmy's out here too. What's up, Timmy? Shout out. But anyway, so I've actually seen a license plate, which is my point, with the Best Friends symbol, and you can go look at the symbol. It's kind of creepy. Just turn it upside down and tell me what you see. But so my point being that it is like a familiar thing with the locals in certain areas of the state. So that whole southern Utah into Arizona area, it is suspect. Now listen, I'm the first one to tell you people get bullshit unless they're talking about foster care and, you know, the actual government and shit like that. But the whole thing, just because I've been there and I've seen the Best Friends Animal Shelter and Process Church, it does kind of creep me out a little bit about that.
Yeah, I remember into it. I've read about these various cult leaders, and the thing is, there is a lot of crossover between Satanists and animal rights activists, and it's because of their innate misanthropy. It's not because they love animals so much as I think they hate man, and their basic philosophy is that man is just an animal, right, and that they happen to be philosophically, because of they're Satanists, they're better than everybody. But yeah, essentially, yeah, they really went into that. Animal rights as a cover, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. And that's funny because you were talking about Super Recognizer, and he does a really great little video on Charles Manson and how some people thought the Process Church actually committed the murders and got away with it. But I mean, he also says that Charles Manson was the leader of the Process Church too.
Wait, see, that's a connection there though, because see, the Manson killings, you've got Roman Polanski, an associate of Anton LaVey, who was an advisor on Rosemary's Baby, and of course it was his wife that was killed. And then you have Susan Atkins, the killer, who was one of Anton LaVey, Church of Satan's topless witches. In those weird ceremonies, they'd give her acid and put her in the coffin. So I'm like, wait a minute here. That's another group of Satanists tied in with the same little group. I mean, it's such a intricate web of connections here, and I don't think it's a stretch, you know, to suggest something here. But
yeah, and that's the thing is, like when like Tracy Twyman was talking about, it was just a campsite, like a KOA campsite, and like she wasn't even really talking about celebrities. She was talking about just some campsite owner, and I think she said it's Williams, Arizona. I'm gonna get fucking killed probably right now talking about it, but whatever. And
wait, somebody here says, I'm sorry, Echo Charlie has to say here, it wasn't Kubrick that was the pedo, it was Polanski. And that's right, it was Polanski. I guess the story was the mother.
You're right. Yeah, because I said Kubrick was it. Yeah, no, Roman Polanski.
Yeah, you got to be you got to be a little careful. You can't be flippant when you make those types of accusations. But no, it's well known.
Sorry. Oh my God, I'm gonna get. Hey, sue me. I guess. Good luck collecting any money. I hide all my money in trust, so good luck with that. Just kidding.
You could be sold.
Anyway,
you could be sold for your adrenochrome, and it's possible that maybe adrenochrome is like wine and it ages, and the older the victim, the better, and the higher.
Come on, don't say that. No, you're scaring me. Don't say that. Come on.
I'm
Stop.
kidding. I think I'm kidding. I could be right.
But anyway, yeah. Who knows? Like, they're probably listening, some of these people. No, anyway, so that's the thing with Tracy Twyman. She was really getting into that whole thing. Voodoo Donuts in Portland, a very popular donut place in Portland, and I don't know. There's more to it, but I won't get into it right now. But
Wait, one more thing.
yeah,
Tomorrowland.
I mean, she had some
Tomorrowland.
really good research. Go ahead.
Go into
Oh
Tomorrowland,
yeah.
though. That's the main thing. What was Tracy Twyman on about this hidden land that the elites were privy to?
Well, okay. So that one, I remember that one, and also Equinox Gate. All right. So, but I'm going to bring up the one she talked about, the Rupa and the Mecca and the stone. So, and that, you might be familiar since you went and investigated the Freemasons. And, there's always the two pillars, but there's also that third pillar, right? So she would talk about in Mecca how right outside the stadium where they all walk around for Kaaba stone and do their thing, there's two pillars, but then there's a third in the middle, and I think it might have been a dome structure, or she might have been saying that the Mecca stone, the Kaaba, was the third one, right? And so the third one's supposed to be like the invisible one, unless you look at the right angle, and it's like your stairway to heaven. You probably know more about all that shit than I do. But, we're always talking about pillars and shit, but there's a third pillar offset in the background. And she talks about it's invisible and radiation comes up from this. And it's really interesting. You'll have to go watch it. Like, she can explain it better than I can right now. But she also talks about, like, the Equinox Gates and what you were talking about, where it's, like, flat Earth-based center, like, not, like, forget about the fucking ice shit around, but what's in the center, And she talks about that, how there's probably some sort of mountain that's only visible at a certain time and certain sunlight, and you'll just have to go check it out. I mean, it kind of reminds me of didn't like Ayn Rand write a book similar to
Yes, in
a
fact,
theory like that? I think she might have.
I came across
Yeah.
a few articles and a blog post and a video about this, about Ayn Rand and Tracy Twyman, and they made some statements about Ayn Rand. Her real name, I think, is something like something Rosenbaum, and so her name Ayn was specifically chosen. And the author suggested that name was chosen because of its relation to the Kabbalah and the exit out of the world. Some kind of interesting esoteric reason. But yeah, if you read Atlas Shrugged,
Oh yeah.
she's an objectivist. So she doesn't
Go
believe
ahead.
in God or mysticism. But her book is just full of symbolism about Prometheus and the gods and the symbol of Atlantis. And it does suggest that it's not really a book. It's not really a good book, a good happy ending in the sense that it ends with the world
Well,
going dark.
yeah. Well, she was quite the writer too. Some good stuff. Like, have you heard of the concept of clock shavings?
Hold on a second here.
Like, she was quite into
let me get her real
Okay.
name. Let me get her real name. And if I had a quarter for every time somebody corrected somebody for saying it's Ayn, not Anne, people get so mad about that. But that's not even her real name.
I don't give a shit. Yeah, I'm saying Ann just to fucking troll people. So it's Ann.
Well, I don't know her real name.
Whatever.
I don't really care that much, except to say that her
Yeah,
book
exactly.
is probably an epic piece of metascripting. I think it's one of the best-selling books of the last 50, 60 years. And so there's plenty about her book, though, that suggests, like, it has things like perpetual or free energy. It has this idea of also this hidden land where the elite go, where they basically hoard all the best technology. And if somebody in the world
Yeah.
is doing very well with their company and they're very successful, they're given an option. Do you want to stay here and get taxed and parasited on, or do you want to come to Atlantis? So you can kind of earn your way in, but they had this initiation oath. So it's kind of very culty as well. John
Yeah.
Galt is a cult leader.
She's probably she's probably over there. She's still alive, just like with Tupac and whoever else. But so with Tracy Twyman, like, she was very like occulty herself. Like, She was into like Ouija board and doing seances and try to like start her own order and all this kind of shit. But my point with that was that, oh man, I just lost my train of thought.
Okay, so wait. You're saying that Tracy Twyman was herself a Satanist, is what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. And so she also like, you know, she has some like mental health problems and all that kind of stuff, allegedly, like from what I've read so far.
Or she was really successful at being a Satanist, and demons were talking to her. But I'm thinking here though.
Exactly.
The main thing, your point you brought up here, is she's dead, and she died mysteriously after following in Cappy's footsteps.
Right. But no, I was gonna say, all right. So her website's called Plus Ultra, and we've already talked about Plus Ultra before on here. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of Plus Ultra. There's more beyond. So she was big on that. She actually followed a lot of a few penguins. Shout out to Bad Platitude. She followed him for a while, which is strange.
He's got some great memes. Great epic crop and drops.
Yeah. Oh, she was a big fan of memes. She had some really good memes. Her best one was a Q one, and she had like a line of Trumpers, and the meme just said, Q led me to this Q, which was pretty funny, I thought. So, I don't know, like, yeah, she was, read her books, Clock Shavings, like, that's a reference to making a promise to never go to heaven, and apparently, like, she did that or something like that. Like, you swear.
Well, look, I've seen everything available with regards to the supposed death of Isaac Cappy, and I'm not buying it. I don't believe he died. Yeah. So that makes everything about this questionable, especially if they were trying to create a mythos here so they could, bait the right wing into thinking they had evidence that all these politicians are baby eaters and blood drinkers. Cappy was a huge part of that. Even towards the end of October, Lynn Wood he had a big audience, millions on Twitter, and he was saying Isaac Cappy was murdered by the deep state. He was trying to reopen that. So that, to me, makes me think it's all just a psyop.
Absolutely. And that's the other side of this argument that I'm glad, of course, that's what's good to talk about. And that he's associated with Alex Jones, and you can just make the connections there. And, like, I go back to the Yuri Bezmenov whatever video, and the whole talk about the Joker and the Batman. Once you're done with somebody, you just eliminate them. So she might be dead, she might be not, but she's gone for now because she did what she had to do, and she propped up Cappy, brought him into like the more like conspiratorial world or whatever. And
maybe she
and
Cappy went off into a sunset, into Plus Ultra Tomorrowland together. Whatever it is.
Yeah, they went searching for the yellow sailboat.
Look, I ordinarily don't make light of people who are dead, but like these are obviously fake deaths. They gave us a CGI Cappy. The thing on the ground was an obvious dummy. The whole thing too is based on the existence of Tom Hanks, child trafficker, putting out a hit on somebody who outed him. So it's this is what Lynn Wood said. Lynn Wood was saying Tom Hanks killed Cappy, and this was right before it was announced that Tom Hanks was going to be at the inauguration. So I thought, why is he putting a target on the celebrity's back? But anyway, that's part of this.
But at the same time, I have to wonder, like, just from my own experience now, because I've been around the area, Kaibab and the Vermilion Canyon and Williams, and I've seen it, and I know that Best Friends Animal Shelter is out there, and that is the Process Church, and they're up to no good, and I know that. So for me personally, like, fuck what everybody else can say, like, they sound like jackasses, but just being out there and seeing these people and knowing about the Process Church, like, it kind of raises more questions for me personally, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, but look, the thing is too, it's all connected. Like, if Cappy died the way that we're told, and she did too, then it would follow that Tom Hanks is a baby eater and that he had Cappy killed. Those were the connections that were made. The story is pretty clear. He was being accused of things by Isaac Cappy, and Hanks apparently threatened him on Instagram through some symbolic manner, and it involved, I guess, a piece of roadkill that Tom Hanks photographed on Route 66. 42 years or days later,
Yeah,
Cappy
I
falls
remember
on
that. Yeah,
Route
yeah,
66.
yeah, yeah. You know, I just don't know. There's just so much.
But
I
you
mean,
can't.
her research too is just really fucking good. So, like, that's also kind of throws me off, the fact that her research is so good that, like, you know, that's. But what were they like trying to release that on purpose? Like, let her say this. Did she say too much? I don't know. But her research is pretty freaking good so far to me. But yeah,
I'm still looking, and I am new to the topic of this plus ultra, but you know, it's all very convoluted, and it hinges on Cappy's death being real. And if it is real, like let's just say it was real, it happened that way, then it does have the hallmarks of a hit, because Tom Hanks did more or less call it on Instagram, and then that would have me questioning, well, then is Tom Hanks in fact a child trafficking adrenochrome junkie? So it's all connected.
yeah. And the whole point, like, that I brought up to, you know, before, which I have to, you know, rely on my own shit. Cappy was never talking about foster care or the DCFS system, so that makes it all suspect, of course.
Well, the thing is too. Let's say he had no knowledge of that.
Go ahead.
He has no knowledge of any of that, but he does happen to be privy to Hollywood insiders because of his role in these movies. He wasn't a big league actor, so his access got him backstage, and he heard about Seth Green's Dungeon for Kids and all kinds of weird things, and he started blabbing about it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can forgive him for focusing on a sensationalistic topic like Pizzagate, but you know, he's the one who gave it credibility for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, you know, like with Bill Cooper, I always go back to him because I listened to a bunch of it way back in the day. But he was fed a lot of alien stuff, so that makes you wonder, was Cappy being fed a bunch of the, you know, the bipartisan Pizzagate bullshit, where it's like the Democrats are doing it, Hillary's eating babies, all this kind of stuff. Was he being fed that stuff, and was he just a tool for that, you know, to discredit other things?
True,
you know,
true.
Actual problems with that.
Look,
so, you know, they always do that, feed people shit. So
yeah, I mean, think about it. They've been feeding people this misinformation to make them, to make it easy to characterize them as lunatics. So then come January 6th, they could do what they did. They could just brand this entire group as crazy. But I'm still not convinced that there's an elite group of blood drinkers at the top of this thing. But if there is such a thing, I think it's more spread out. And there's no point in saying, oh, it's the Jesuits or it's the Masons, because probably it's everywhere and probably people you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's a foster care system. That's what I like to, like, I don't want to make a joke about it, but it's like Q's going to go save the kids from the deep state, and like he's going to take all the kids he saves out of the sewers, and he's going to go take them over to DCFS in the foster system, and they're just going to cycle them right through, you know? Like, that's the Q mentality right there. Is, yeah, we're going to save them, but you're not going to change, like, the actual funnel, the actual, like, source of it. Like, come on, Q, give me a break.
Well, Q's over. The PSYOP has run its course. There's no more drops. It's done. It was interesting while it lasted.
You think so?
I think it's done.
I don't know about that. What about, like, the woman in Congress? Like, she's going to keep that shit alive for a while. It went mainstream, like.
Well, what I mean is, it's going to exist as a cudgel to attack right wingers instead of calling them racist.
Oh, gotcha.
It's more inclusive than saying racist.
All right, so. Yeah, we're talking, again, I'm going back because I love that Wikipedia of the simulation and simulacra, like what you were just talking about. Like, it's turned into just a copy of an unoriginal. Like, there's no more original. It's just a copy, and they're just going to copy and model it, and that's all it is. It's simulacra. That's all that is at this point. It's not there's no more, like, newness to it. There's not going to be any, like, Reddit developments or 8chan or whatever the fuck it is.
Well, anyway, when it comes to this topic of QAnon, I think it's over. I don't see any other entrances. They're only saving the only possibility that could save their whole war on the deep state is if possibly the entire Biden administration has been nothing but basically a I guess you'd call it a reality TV show at Castle Rock. If that's true, then that's the case. But what I often find is just manufactured evidence. People are saying, I got my Trump check, I got my stimulant check, and it was actually signed by Donald Trump. And I hear stuff like that, and I don't believe it because it sounds made up. But if somebody can give me evidence of that,
Yeah.
I'll kick the queue down a little bit down the road, and we'll keep going with it. But I think it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right. You're always right. IPS. All right. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about that. But
Yeah, thanks for filling us in on the process
right.
call, Tracy Twyman. We'll look in that direction because I think it's relevant. Appreciate the call.
All right, for sure. Bye.
Right. So, yeah, the Q thing, some think it's still going, some think he's still going to do something. My point is there even a deep state? That's my main question here. Is there a deep state? Or is there just a state? It seems like the deep state is code for Democrats. And so they want to drain the swamp, meaning get rid of the opposition. And the other side wants to do the same thing. They want to, purge the radicals. I don't think that there is a deep state. I think they both are. Posel says Biden admin is fake AF. Look, they give us a lot of ambiguity. That's the thing. They give us a lot of ambiguity about Biden. Is that Biden? Is it Beau Biden in a hideous mask? Is it Jim Carrey? Is it a hologram? What the hell are we looking at with his head disappearing? Not to mention the lobes floating free. Sometimes they're stuck to his head. His eyes are coal black. They used to be blue. So we don't really know. And then there are a number of other things too where people have noted discrepancies, suggesting that maybe it's not the same place, it's a different sky. So are they deep faking are they deep faking a presidency? So this is the thread that they're clinging to. The thread that the QAnons are clinging onto is this, that right now the military is in control and we're watching a movie. And one of the things that QAnon used to say in his Q drops was, quote, you are watching a movie. Always telling them to remember they're watching a movie. This is why it was constantly told that they need to sit down and eat their popcorn. So the idea is they're watching something staged and fake, and at the end of it, Trump's going to return in some final form, maybe with a tricorn hat, and they're going to start the American Republic. And the American corporation will be dead, and we'll have two presidents. And then we'll find out that the first one was simply just more or less a placeholder to keep the public from rioting or something. Does that sound plausible or believable to anybody here? Restless Bear says Trump is retired. Well, I checked actually, because I know somebody very close to the Trumps. I have a source. And the last I checked, they were doing a poll to see if people are still trusting the plan. And it's like 60-40. 60-40. 60% are still trusting the plan, even if that means extending the plan until 2024. Which means what? But again, my question is there a deep state? And are the QAnoners going to go rescue the children? Who's going to fight the deep state if Trump doesn't follow through? And this tells me the entire thing could likely have been controlled opposition to dox the opposition. So now the real commies know who the anti-commies are. Adaptivia says, I have inside military intel. Let us know. Let us know what your inside military intel is telling you about the war on the deep state. Some days they'll say, oh, well, there were 50,000 Chinese troops that were going to come in and kill us, but luckily QAnon and the white hats sent in some F-16s and bombed them. Like, you can't just make up stories about these military victories. Okay, LOL was a response, so we're not going to get the inside military intelligence right now. Posel says, none of this makes sense without the alien agenda. See, that's true, and I kind of put the alien agenda on the back burner thinking, well, maybe COVID was the alien invasion that we've been waiting for. It pretty much meets all the requirements. Universal threat from beyond, requires a world government solution. So then we're looking at the Stanley Kubrick film Space Odyssey 2001, and it has a scene where all these generals are gathered in a room, and the president presumably is saying something like, how much longer do we have to maintain the pandemic cover story? And someone says, as long as we can. So in that movie, they suggest that a pandemic is going to be used as a cover story. Well, cover for what? And one other thing, the QAnon narrative leans heavily on Space Force being 100% legitimate, and basically Trump's army, and loyal to him, the Guardians, who will protect us from, I guess, China and Russia in the incoming space war. Mary Smith says Trump likes to play with his food. I've never seen that, but I've seen him eat his pizza from the crust first. I'm not sure what that means, if we have any Pizzagate specialists here. What does it mean when a politician eats the pizza from the crust versus the other way? Do I want to know? Commenter says, blatantly destroying emails or ordering phone hacks on citizens without repercussions is deep state. Okay, here's the thing. I can point to several hundred psychological operations perpetrated by the media, but it's not just the media. It's the media along with the politicians who go along with it that are bipartisan. They're both a part of it. And this includes people who you would call deep state as well as the friendlies, the people you think are on your side. You know, I mean, unless you believe, I mean, this is where it gets really convoluted too. Because, like, if you're going to go with the QAnon narrative, you're kind of forced to go with Apollo 11 being real. Or you're at least forced to go with the whole Space Force narrative. It's a world stage conspiracy theory to explain things. Meaning, it explains everything with the frame of reference being the world stage being real. Nukes are real. UFOs are real. Space is real, the way they say. And so I don't operate in that universe. Okay, I got a link here. ABC 11, Skylight, Raleigh, North Carolina. So there's a light in North Carolina, most likely a SpaceX launch. Yeah, I've seen many of these videos from porch cams. They're getting people used to the idea of stuff falling from the sky. Okay, someone says that Trump eating the pizza crust first means baby meat is soft, mature meat is tough. So he eats the tough first. Okay, it means he doesn't eat babies. He was sending a sign, sending a message. Now, here's the way the media has been using it, though. Okay? You've got radical Islamic terrorists who've caught the mind viruses that radicalize them. They got the mind viruses from the Quran. Now they're radicalized and they're threats. They go into cells and they can actually spread their ideology. So you have to contact trace the various terrorists that the FBI is catching these stings to find out where they caught their radical ideology, that mind virus. And then you find out where they caught it by taking them into quarantine, which they called Guantanamo. But you can't just stick a Q-tip up their nose to find out. You got to pour water up their nose. You got to waterboard them. And then you get to find out, okay, this is where he caught the Quranic mind virus. So it was setting the stage for the future. And now they've managed to just take that same exact template and apply it to the political right. So now you've been radicalized by not Quran, by QAnon. And these QAnon verses that tell you you're fighting a war of good versus evil. It's a holy war. You're fighting against the great Satan. And how is it not the great Satan? Do you remember during 9/11, after 9/11? It was like, America's the great Satan. Israel's the little Satan. And the Patriots like, well, no, we're not. So they go bomb them. Well, now it's like the Patriots are the other ones saying, yeah, actually, we are the great Satan. And the Democrats are literally Satanists and baby eaters and child traffickers. So it's a radicalizing theory that actually puts targets on very specific people. That's why I thought it was very curious that at the inauguration you had Lady Gaga, Kate Perry, and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, Kate Perry, and Lady Gaga are three specifically named by QAnoners as hardcore adrenochrome junkies, high-level Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, like top of the food chain. So it's like, wait, they have these individuals that QAnon have already figured as part of the other side at the inauguration. It's just too perfect. Tom Hanks, I mean, come on, it's just like, are they literally just playing them, or are they gaslighting them? I mean, what really is going on here? But again, one reason I find the whole thing very implausible is that the QAnon story is also based on the notion that only the political left is evil. That like Ted Cruz doesn't eat babies. He's not deep state. It's only Democrats. There's no way it can be like that. So I figured this was an election. Basically, it was a psyop made for an election year. How do we get the people who don't trust the news to vote for our guy? How do we get them to think in very basic good versus evil terms? I mean, we will see. We'll see. I kind of think that the QAnon is going to somewhat disappear. And right now what I see is a lot of media shaming, where they're bringing former QAnons out and having them confess what they believed. And I've seen a number of episodes of Anderson Cooper where he has people apologizing to him. I'm sorry I accused you of being a serial killer, a baby eater. And as believable as it may sound, just listening to some of these individuals and their rhetoric, when you actually hear them confront the guy, it just, I don't know, it has, to me, I get the sense that the authors of these hysterical conspiracy theories are the targets of the conspiracy theories. Kind of like blood libel. If you're able to accuse the other side of just being hateful, you kind of take the moral high ground away from them. Or if you make them seem unhinged and dangerous. Remember the shootings the summer before last? Gilroy, the Garlic Festival. You had the Dayton, Ohio shooting. And then you had the Walmart shooting. Well, the Walmart shooter happened to say that it was basically QAnon had radicalized him against immigrants. All right, Restless Bear says there are Republican ones too. No one says there isn't. I have not seen anything in QAnon to suggest that the child trafficking baby eaters are purely on the left, and including the rhinos, of course. So yes, it's a little bit more nuanced because, like, yes, most of them believe that Mike Pence was a pedo and a baby eater. In fact, that was one of the statements made by Lynn Wood. I referenced Lynn Wood earlier. He represented, or almost represented, Kyle at first. Well, he was the one saying that they needed to hang Pence. So then you had these actors running into the Capitol on January 6th, chanting for the cameras, right in front of CNN's cameras, hang Pence. They got that from Lynn Wood. Agitator, obviously. Ready or Not says, Tom Hanks has a photo collection of lost shoes. That has to be a reference to something. Yeah, it is really strange, isn't it? That as unbelievable as these conspiracy theories are, there is nonetheless a lot of stuff to suggest they're right. So it's kind of a weird conundrum. So, for example, Tom Hanks talked about, first he got his citizenship in Greece or something, and somebody said that's because he can classify his condition, his predatory nature, as a mental illness. I don't know if that's true, but they said that's why he went out there. But he did say he was going to be selling hot dogs at the baseball games. Hot dogs is a major key word within Pizzagate. It refers to something terrible. And then he accepts the role of Geppetto on a live remake of Pinocchio. So I'm like, wait, you're going after a role where the character's name is literally Geppetto, knowing that your family is at the center of this controversy. And it's family. You know, it's his wife's a part of it. She's supposedly locked up on a Guantanamo with Tom Hanks. Their son, Chet, has the Illuminati tattoos on his body. He has COVID tattooed on his chest. I mean, who gets COVID tattooed on their chest? Okay, Adaptivia says, they always say the masses can't handle the info. Yes, okay, that's one of the main things here. So the QAnon story also says that the public would not be able to handle psychologically, emotionally, or otherwise. They wouldn't be able to handle the truth if it were revealed too openly. So what they're doing is they're gently going to let us in on it after Trump and the white hats have taken out the deep state. So we're going to see it all on TV. Space Force will shoot down all the Chinese spy satellites, and Trump will broadcast from the sky, and all the world will see his face in the sky, and he's going to tell us what's up with the deep state or something. That's the story. It's an emergency broadcast, and it was supposed to hit all phones, all computers, all TVs, which sounds a lot like Revelations 9:1, where everybody sees the face of the Lord before Revelations, the opening of the seals. Well, what was QAnon promising? Opening of the seals. Remember the sealed indictments? Oh yeah, QAnon's got 50,000 sealed indictments that will be opened, and it's going to be a great awakening. Great awakening means revelation, apocalypse. I think that the last 4 years that Trump's campaign leading up to it and this QAnon narrative, I think it was all scripted off of Revelations. I think that's what it was actually based upon, with Trump being Christ and essentially promising a not necessarily Christ, but like he's promising the second coming, that there's gonna be a revelation, and maybe it is him. Brian Williamson says Tom Hanks's life is a movie. Yeah, this is the strangest thing though. You know, either it's true or they're trying to make us think it's true. But there's no middle ground. I mean, for example, Lady Gaga, who sang the national anthem dressed up like a character from the Hunger Games, previously performed at a music video award ceremony where she had a piano shaped like a giant human brain, and she's wearing bladed gloves, singing a song called something like I Want to Drink Your Adrenochromatica, or Chromatica, while playing piano with these bloody fingers. It's just like, okay, it's a cult of vampires, or they want us to think that they are. But there's like no middle ground there. You can't say there's no there. You can't say there's nothing. So where there's smoke, there's fire. The question is the fire actual fire or simulated in order to cause a certain segment of the population to panic? I mean, it's just so convoluted. It looks to me, though, like engineered psychodramas, just stories planted out there, rumors and panics. I mean, do you remember how they characterized these accusations of satanic cults back in the 80s? They called them the Satanic Panic. Well, it's an irrational fear that spreads like a virus, essentially. And I think you could say, in many ways, that QAnon has been a resurgence of a satanic panic. It's all based on rumor and conjecture. Coldcracker says, I was saying this the whole time, we're in the Hunger Games, it's just starting. Okay, so we're in the Hunger Games, we're in the Dark Winter, we're in Mad Max, next year is Soylent Green. A lot of universes colliding right now. AUWLQS Earther says, Space Trumpers from far, far away in space on Space Channel said they're going to liberate humans from bondage, and Trump is their master. Okay. That's kind of the story that I got. And last year, if you heard this, the Galactic Federation contacted the head of Space Command in Israel and said, we're sorry, but the humans aren't ready yet. So they've already put it out there into the mass consciousness that there is a Galactic Federation, and they're waiting until everybody's vaxxed or something before they rear their heads. So the reptoids don't think we're ready yet. All right, let's see. I think people are somewhat divided here. Like, there's wishful thinking, and there's true believers. And then there's the people who are open to the possibility that the whole thing was a ruse. I'd like to know how many people here are still on board 100% with the idea of the deep state about to be overthrown. And if it doesn't go through, if it doesn't follow along with the plan, if the plan just disappears, just peters out, you know, what's going to happen? Will you concede that the other side won? 33 Ren says, by Q, what comes next? I guess there's going to be a void. I kind of thought that the QAnon phenomenon just came on the stage to lead people to the voting booth at a time that a lot of people were falling out of favor with Alex Jones, who was backtracking on a lot of things. He believes in the moon landing. He believes in Sandy Hook. That's all you need to know. All right, let me see here. Jordan says Einstein's scripted birthday was 3/14. Hawking's death was scripted at 3/14. Yes, and both of them died at the ages of 76. Highly scripted, and I think it's part of myth building more than anything. Okay, listen to this. So in Donnie Darko, in the scene where he's watching a football game, he's got a shirt, and the player has Donnie's shirt says Triumph on it. So Donnie Darko wearing a shirt that says Triumph. On the screen, the player has jersey 17. Now, Triumph, the word, contains Trump. You take I and H out of it. The I is 9, H is 8, 17. So it's been put together here that you have these Trump and references to the number 17, presumably Q, in a movie that references him many times. And this Donnie Darko movie is fascinating because it has so many clear examples of predictive programming that are so on point. It's, you know, it's just more evidence, you know, piling up here that we are indeed unraveling the Metascript, and it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's even in the children's programming. That's why one of the first things you're told to believe in is the existence of falling rocks from space that could wipe out the entire world. Extinction events. That's MK Ultra, trauma-induced mind control. You grow up and first thing you see, aside from the humans, are dinosaurs everywhere. Dinosaur pajamas, dinosaurs on the walls, all the cartoons are talking dinos. And then once you learn how to speak, they say, oh, by the way, those dragons, those cool talking, colorful beasts that you see in these cartoons, right? Yeah, they're all dead because a rock from the sky. So that's one of your first lessons. You learn the concept of mass extinction, which may not even happen in reality. It may not even be a real thing. It's a pure hypothetical situation. Posel says, if Trump is out of power, then why are they constantly attacking him as a private citizen? I've seen on Twitter it was trending something like transition 45 to prison or something. They certainly do. Lane Dion says Barney died horribly. Yep, exactly. Barney. That's the dinosaur that does all the group hugs. And yeah, he probably got evacuated off the surface of the earth when the atmosphere was ripped up, and he was spat out to the face of the moon with the rest of the dinos. Probably asphyxiated. Hoaxahonta says mass extinction is predictive programming. Sure, and more than this, nearly every child's movie or TV show, on the big screen, if it's not about dinosaurs, it's about space. If it's not about space, or a dinosaur is not a main character, at a minimum, it's going to open up with a scene from outer space. Like every movie starts off with a scene of the ball Earth surrounded by space junk. Apollyon says, I find it interesting that the military is not saluting Biden. As I said before, there's plenty to go off of. It seems to be ambiguous if you really dig, and you don't have to dig deep. You'll find suggestions here and there of where it appears to be a movie set. And what's the fence for? Here's my question, okay? Because those of you who looked at it closely and honestly know that there wasn't a siege or an insurrection. It was a frat party. It was a joke. And for some reason, people are going along with the story that it was this majorly destructive terror attack or even a bombing. But it wasn't. But ever since then, they put up the fortifications, the fences, and the National Guard all around the thing. And it's like, well, who are they trying to keep out? What's the deal? It's not like there's really a whole lot of QAnoners. So I'm going to read you a couple of quotes here. Animatrix says, he said, now I don't know if this is true because it's on Twitter. He says, Donald Trump's signature is on his stimmy check. Quote, you know what this means? 1, the Treasury is now in control, not the old Federal Reserve Corporation. Therefore, we're back to the Constitution of 1776. The world banking will now be on the QFS under the authority of the new republic with Donald Trump as commander-in-chief. So I got that from Twitter based off of the claim that Trump's signature is on the stimulus checks. Does anybody find that credible? Or does it sound like wishful thinking? Yeah, the bombing at the Capitol, excuse me. Brian Williamson says, Q theories give me headaches. Right. Well, you know what they are? They're called rolling conspiracies. It's like a prophecy. I would call it a prophecy cult in many ways, just like global warming cults. And it relies on a lot of people who are heavily emotionally, like just tied into it. You're so emotionally invested. Kind of like a bad relationship or something, where you put so much into it, you're not just going to flippantly drop it. And it's so immersive that what are you going to replace it with? So it's still, there are still some bitter clingers, I think. But, we shall see. Has Trump given any indication? Has he sent any signal indicating that he's going to make a comeback? Well, if you read between the lines, and the thinking here, too, is that this is some 8D chess Machiavellian plot, and in order to be successful, they have to pretend like nothing's happening. Apollyon Music said, I read a story from the White House today, and it said that Biden's signature will not be on them, but neither will Trump's. I don't know what checks they're talking about anyway. I had a understanding it was nothing but direct deposits. Like, who's actually getting checks? Where do you cash these checks? Someone says trolling prophecies. Oh yeah, that's a weird one. This is something worth bringing up. Trump did speak at a charity event about rescuing dogs from China. I guess these would be feed dogs, or dogs that they eat. And I'm not sure about this charity event. I just know that it was at his Mar-a-Lago place. He gets up and he speaks about how great of a cause that it is. But the thing is, right now, if you look at the Metascript, the big picture, the forced memes of the day, it seems like dark winter is not being pushed as much, and now it's this dog thing. I mean, it started really on the 2nd of February with Elon Musk's rocket blowing up, but right before that, he was hyping up this Dogecoin, which people call dog coin, doggy coin. It's got a dog on it. And more recently, Elon Musk has been referencing in his tweets the dog star in context of the dog coin, which is all just, really strange. But anyway, let me show you what he has been up to. I mean, he's got 5 million followers. I don't know if anybody reads too much into it. He's talking about buying a dog called a Shiba. This is yesterday. Elon Musk says, "Why are you so dogmatic? Dog Day afternoon." Origin of Dog Day afternoon. Ancient Romans sacrificed a dog coin at the beginning of dog days to appease the rage of Sirius the dog star, believing the star was the cause of the hot, sultry weather. Now, these are tweets from Elon Musk referencing the dog. And this is, again, an example, I think, of forced memes. A dog spelled backwards is EGOD, says Pope Elon, whose wife wants to have her consciousness beamed into a computer so she can be sent to Mars or something like that. Not into getting to a rocket. Coalcracker says stimulus checks are going to pump inflation high up, so the US dollar can't be used as TP. Right. When people were fighting over toilet paper, I thought it was an elite joke to make the masses fight over worthless paper, and it really being money or cash. Adaptivia says game to $10K is not a meme. Now, that game stock thing is really intriguing, and this bears repeating. So you have this individual named Kevin Gill, and he's the one with the Reddit account, Kevin Gill, who started the spike on GameStop's stock. I'm going to find a picture of this guy. These individuals are so shady to me. I find them all to be, I don't know, just a little too cartoonish to believe. But you got to see their pictures side by side. So you have to compare Robinhood CEO, and his name is Vlad Tenev. You have to compare this guy to the one who really started the whole controversy. And this was the one that they called Pure Effing Value. That was his Reddit account. And it looks like the same guy, only he's wearing what appears to be a bandana on his head. So it's not even a good disguise. And I have the two of them side by side. Somebody said that there's an accent, which is like the only difference. It's like they're not even trying. At least Joe Biden keeps us guessing at who the hell he is. But this guy, I think his name is Kevin. But anyway, I'm looking at these pictures. I'll post them up on the screen. Again, it's got to be one of the most lackluster disguises that I've ever seen. Looking at them side by side. Just combs his hair different, puts in contact lenses. Nobody knows the difference. All right, phones are open, 833-311-1984. No, his name's Vlad, not Vlad Tepes, but this Vlad character, you've got to compare him side by side. And I think they've done interviews on the same day, possibly the same location, but it's just his resemblance to the Reddit guy. So one is on, they're playing opposite sides of this apparent game. It's like a psyop, good versus evil. But in this case, it's like it's the same guy, different hair color, bandana on his head. Okay, I'm going through comments. If anybody thinks it's the same a different person, please point me in the direction where I can find this out for myself. But all I see is a ruse, a psyop, and it was good enough for some reason. Like, they don't even try. That's why I keep saying this is Mystery Science Theater. Hoaxahanta says his eyes are too different a color. Okay, that's the thing, contact lenses. And I should probably bring this up. I mentioned her last night because, people will often say, well, it can't be the same person. They're different ages, or they're different heights, or no way, that person's got blonde hair. And she gives a very succinct explanation of how the system works when it comes to disguises. Her name is Jonah Mendez, former CIA operative. She was the chief of disguise. And there's a formula to it. And she says what you do is you make sure that every single box that somebody checks when they look at someone is the opposite of what they would normally check when they saw that person. If they have blue eyes, turn them dark. If they have short hair, give them long hair. If they look young, age them, and vice versa.
Your biggest concern might be that your next door neighbor was going to wander into that cafe at that moment and say, "Hi, Bill," when you weren't Bill. And that kind of casual stumbling upon people was an issue. And so you'd wear what we called light disguise. Light disguise can be something as simple as a wig, maybe some facial hair.
Okay, so here she gets into the detail of the disguise, but really it's about throwing off expectations first. So if someone is brought up as a possible deep faker, this person is this person, it's meant to throw you off. And so you have to kind of reverse engineer it a little bit.
You were talking to would have no idea that you were not in True Face. One of the things that was going on when I was chief of disguise was an enormous research program into the new advanced disguise system. It was basically the masks that everybody always wondered if we used masks, and this was the beginning. This is a series of photographs.
Now, the masks that she's describing were actually airbrushed out of the picture because they're foolproof. And she was able to, fool the president there. But they were including the entire headpiece. And the point is, these were actually classified until like 2015. I think now they're doing it all with, well, CGI. Overthought says Mendez lady is a veteran liar. Yeah, I think so. No doubt. However, I think she gives away where she's lying. There are two areas where she lies or obfuscates the truth here. One, I think that they phased this out because they replaced it with something else. About the actual techniques, she's spot on, but she claims that although they routinely pass their agents, their female agents, off as men, they can never do the opposite. It's a strange thing she throws in at the end, which makes me think it's probably more common.
When you go to disguise a person, the general idea is that you're going to meet with someone in this disguise, and they're going to write a memo of the person that they just met with. We want every item in that memo that describes you to be wrong.
So every item, to me, would also suggest, well, pretty much everything. But anyway, the ones they show us aren't very convincing at all, which is kind of strange. I've seen Hollywood behind the scenes that are far more sophisticated than what she's revealing here. So I think she's concealing more than she's revealing. Overthought says she's probably wearing a mask in this video. And that's probably true too. I also think that, in the context of the Stanley Kubrick thing we've been bringing up, masks are
Terms of
a major plot piece in many of his movies. But the Space Odyssey thing has, 2001. That movie doesn't have, no, I'm sorry, Eyes Wide Shut has the masks. The one that came out in 2001. It has these elite wearing Venetian masks. But I kind of think that might be a way of revealing what he's actually telling us, which is the hyper-realistic silicone masks. So you might, for example, Oprah Winfrey. Do you know for a fact that's what she looks like? Or could this be a mask you've been looking at your entire life? And that's kind of what I think he's inferring here, that you don't really know, who's behind the face. And using these grotesque Venetian masks was kind of an exaggeration of the real thing, which are so subtle that you wouldn't know. You know, they're legitimately foolproof. Going through some comments here. Ready or Not says, did you hear about the cops that got caught in Little Rock posing as blacks using this technology to cause crimes and boost percentages? I'd like to hear more. I have seen various accounts of people robbing banks, disguising themselves as white or black, in other words, as the opposite. I've seen that a few times with Hollywood-style masks, but these ones aren't even believable. If you look at some of the ones that have been used in some of these robberies that you see on TV, like there's one where a masked robber looks like an old man who's like 100, but you can tell it's a mask. The Geezer Bandit is the one. If you look up the Geezer Bandit, he robbed places wearing, I think, 16 places. He was a 40-year-old white male, but he had the appearance of being, well, I mean, it looks like a grotesque Halloween costume, but I guess about 80. It's kind of believable. All right, let us move on. But I have not heard about that, but I would be interested to know if that's true. Again, we're talking about hyper-realistic silicone masks, deep fakery. In fact, I got a really good video from Super Recognizer today. So one of the topics along these lines we've been covering has been various pop stars who, fake their deaths, or who are, believed to be playing the role of somebody else on the world stage. And these things are very difficult and tricky to prove, almost impossible. But what usually gets people to agree that it's likely the case is when the timelines match, or the backstories seem to just line up. And so I have an example here. One of the cases we've been discussing for some time is Justin Bieber and The Weeknd. So this is Super Recognizer.
From the same corner of Canada.
Super Recognizer, I brought him up a couple of times before. He's the one who first pointed out, I believe, that Yuri Gagarin, first man in space, played the role of Neil Armstrong. All right, so here we have it. Justin Bieber, Is He The Weeknd? Super Bowl face play decoded.
Canada. They're the same height, close to the same age. They had the same girlfriend in the past, Selena Gomez. And their more recent partners, Hailey Baldwin and Bella Hadid, just happen to look very much like each other. HB and BH. Look at these two. Does that mean they are the same? They look a lot alike, and they are good friends, in fact.
So what he shows here is how there are many strange coincidences connecting Justin Bieber and The Weeknd. Not just them, but their spouses, their girlfriends, their overlapping lives in several ways. However, it is contradicted with overlapping tour dates. And you can find videos of their mutual girlfriends hanging out together. His wife, his girlfriend. So it's got to be one of a couple of things. Either we're looking at, and Super Recognizer brings this up, the possibility of body doubles and lip syncing, or just basic movie magic when it comes to them being seen. You can put two people in the same scene together, the same actor. This is just very simple special effects. But are we looking at essentially movies being played out on the world stage using such special effects to convince you that two individuals are in fact not the same? Could that be? Is that even possible? Could you pull this off? And I think that although it's inconclusive in his view at the end of this video, I think there's enough of a case here between the two, Justin Bieber and The Weeknd, to pretty much say conclusively yes. If you haven't looked into it, I'll put a link to this video in the chat. The channel is Super Recognizer. Jordan says Andy Kaufman and MGR both played the same fake comedian. Who's MGR, if you could fill me in? Andy Kaufman said he was going to fake his death and that he was going to come back in 20 years and get really involved in politics. I don't know if you heard about that. Yes, he said he was going to fake his death to get away from being Andy Kaufman, and he was going to come back. And it is believed, I believe this in fact, because it lines up, that he came back as, well, Andrew Breitbart, editor of Breitbart.com. And funnily enough, Andrew Breitbart emerges on the world stage almost 20 years to the date. So Kaufman told many people that he faked his death. If he was going to fake his death, he'd come back in 2004. According to Wikipedia, Andrew Breitbart's first TV media appearance was 2004. There's only a couple weaknesses in here, and that would be age, but I don't think that's all that difficult. A Restless Bear said, I never found Andy Kaufman funny. I didn't either, nor did I find Jim Carrey's impersonations of him to be funny. I thought it was really strange, but okay, so let's see here. We're going through Justin Bieber is the Weeknd, or is he? Let me play for another 30 seconds here.
Facial confusion or wearing facial prosthetics as forms of Illuminati symbolism. The bandage dancers suggest a group of aspiring lookalikes. Very much like this Saturday Night Live skit with Justin Bieber, they dress like him but don't resemble him. Yet. People have been known to surgically alter their faces to try to look more like a celebrity model, maybe even to be a more convincing body double. He did use them as cover to vanish from that scene. He had performed in these full plastic surgery bandages for the American Music Awards, a pretty bold, sarcastic take on the medical masking that was the big fashion trend of 2020. But the first stage of the face odyssey was this just got beaten up look. Provocative, since celebrity black eyes are taken very seriously by some as a sign.
Again, this is Super Recognizer. He's come across a lot of good information, and in his analysis, it seems to be that
it also symbolizes,
aside from the overlapping tour dates that might have an explanation, it's very plausible here. And then he comments on a couple of things we talk about here, which is the new age and how they phased out the green screen, and the new technology they're bringing in is going to be completely foolproof. And I'll play the rest of this video because it's pretty good. His breakdown here of why they would be perpetrating such hoaxery.
Face full of lights, which could represent the volume, the next generation CGI technology that was used to film The Mandalorian, where the actors are completely surrounded by LED screens displaying pre-prepared content instead of shooting against a green screen with the effects to be added in post. The Mandalorian, of course, also features hooded figures with glowing red eyes, known as the Jawa, and that show was also in the air at the time of the performance. It also works because Jawa is a video editing manifesto from Toronto, whose yearly Videodrome Showcase tournament was held not far from the Weeknd's house in Parkdale.
When you give people...
Okay, and what he closes on here is when you give people too much information, they instantly resort to pattern recognition. Yeah, this is a great piece here. There are many overlapping connections. There are so many things here. It's a 12-minute video. He even goes through many of the lyrics, and he analyzes the lyrics on his performance at the Super Bowl. And the opening lyrics to the opening song had something to do with wearing a mask. I mean, that's the case with a lot of his songs. It's a lot of revealing the duplicity. The Weeknd's name is Abel, which is kind of interesting, the Cain and Abel thing, which, if you look at the two of them in their storylines, you do find, okay, one of them, Justin Bieber, finds Jesus, gets married, repents. The other guy gets deeper into drugs and excess and makes videos about driving around drunk and doing drugs, and his music is completely the opposite of the new family values Christian Justin Bieber. So you have like a cautionary tale. I'm not quite sure where it's going, but if Justin just turned 27, so I thought, well, they could do a little twist on the 27 Club thing and kill off his double. All right, so the end of this video, he plays some of the lyrics, and I'm going to go ahead and just let you hear what he said.
In a place like that.
Take off my disguise.
Fake stars, for example.
I'm living someone else's life.
Billion.
All right. More hints. We found a recent video too. It's just absurd. But anyway, I'll leave it up to somebody else to determine if there's anything to it. I'm surprised at how that one is blown up. And it almost seems like the latest thing with the weird cosmetic surgery on his face was just to kind of bury the story. It's kind of a big story if you think about it, but it's not something in isolation. You know, when you go into that story, oh, that's right, The Weeknd shoots himself at the end of his last video, which has a scene in the Eyes Wide Shut place, you know, with all those masks. I knew there was a reason why. And then the head bandage, the bleeding head thing. Cain and Abel. Abel gets whacked in the head. So I kind of thought there was something to it. There's a lot of interesting layers to the symbolism. But let's move on. I didn't want to get too deep into that one. The vaccine and the satellite, a tale of two Sputniks. Okay, so October 4th, 1957, the scientists launched the first object into space. It was a beach ball-sized object that pretty much looked like a COVID, like a spiky ball. And then last year in August, they released the vaccine called Sputnik. Same name. Interesting coincidence. And this, of course, I think ties together a lot of things. But one of the strangest things about it is the day that that was released, the vaccine, a movie came out from Russia called Sputnik. And it was about an alien virus. So a movie about a virus comes out of Russia the day a vaccine comes out. Now the virus was a space virus, as in it infects the astronaut and the alien takes over. So once it's taken you over, you're now an alien. You know, you have an alien within. And what are you if you're infected, if you're a super spreader? Well, essentially, you're an enemy of the state, an alien within, a threat. And you must be contact traced. And that's exactly what they do with all of the alien movies. They contact trace the people who've come in contact with the aliens. Another correlation between this pretty old alien invasion drama and the pandemic drama. You know, it's amazing how these things overlap in so many ways. Restless Bear says the Blue Origin rockets are awkward. Oh, sure. And in fact, Blue Origin. So you got Jeff Bezos. Then you got Virgin Galactic, the other private one, which is run by Branson. And then you got Elon Musk. These three characters are very much, if you ask me, these three characters are world stage constructs that we've been prepared for, conditioned to respond to in a certain way, based on having been familiarized with them in the culture. So, for example, Elon Musk is clearly a construct of von Braun, the Mars Project. Werner von Braun's vision come to life. And the first dictator of Mars in von Braun's story is called the Elon. Jeff Bezos, or his origins, well, he just landed in New Mexico. That's all they know about him. And he's got the one kind of crazy eye. Well, that right there is already connecting him with the man who fell to Earth, played by David Bowie, with the conspicuously strange asymmetry in his eye, which is, I think, a reference to the same cult, which if you follow the one-eye symbolism, you can see the correlation here. Now, David Bowie, his significance is he plays the man who fell to Earth, crash lands in New Mexico, and gives someone alien technology so that he can get these patents, get rich, and basically become the richest man in the world, which is Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world. Then you have the story of, well, let me just bring up Bowie for a minute. First music video ever in space. Well, when the BBC was playing the Apollo 11, they played Space Oddity. Space Oddity, Space Odyssey. You see these things, there's a parallel story here. David Bowie had a song that was the first music video in space performed in the cupola by Christopher Hadfield. And then when Elon Musk sent the Tesla Roadster to space, it's playing a David Bowie song. I believe it's playing Starman, which happens to be an anagram for Mr. Satan, speaking of falling to earth. So now you have Bezos, man who fell to earth. Elon Musk, creation of von Braun. Richard Branson, and all you have to do is just look at one picture. Richard Branson is based on the blonde guy, Zaphod, from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And you can see it in the pictures, same persona. They're all made up. I mean, I think they're all basically cartoons. Commenter says, The Weeknd's wig from the Adam Sandler movie. Yes, I saw that. There was a scene in an Adam Sandler movie where they had his original wig. Flat Fact says, Life on Mars, David Bowie. Oh yes, there's quite a lot with Bowie and the Mars program. And with Bowie, you also have the Thelemite, the Gnosticism, which is all very much a part of the space program and has been since its genesis, with JPL, L. Ron Hubbard, and their Babylon workings. And these are all things that are part of David Bowie's body of work. So the Man Who Fell to Earth, though, was his first, that's like his entrance, this character. But at the end of Bowie's life, or staged life, he had an album called Black Star, in which he performs a song called Lazarus, where he ascends. Well, Lazarus in the Bible dies and comes back after a few days. And a few days after Bowie's death, he shows up again at Sky News with a real dumb disguise. I mean, it wasn't even passable. It was a ridiculous mask. Not in a mask. It was like a mouth plumper and a wig. It was such a terrible disguise, they had to pixelate the interview so it wouldn't be so obvious. Tomanoid says, the Star Child is what David Bowman comes... Oh, I see. Starman. Right. Strange. There's a lot of strange little bits of symbolism tying these characters together, but one of the things that connects it all is astrology and this worship of the stars, the worship of the celestial realm and the gods. And that's ultimately what I'm saying that NASA is about. You know, I think NASA is ultimately more about this ancient, archaic worldview. I think it's not really about science. It's about dressing up heaven and mysticism with science. Mary Smith says David Bowie had an injury. Yeah, whatever his explanation, the symbolism is pretty apparent here. So if you look at David Bowie's eyes, it's often emphasized in his own pictures. You know, again, this is like what you see with all of the symbolism is the emphasis on one eye over the other. There's a few different meanings that you could extrapolate from that, but I want to compare that to Jeff Bezos. Again, Man Who Fell to Earth starts off in New Mexico. Jeff Bezos is essentially from New Mexico, and nobody knows where he came from. Someone just found the egg and they just hatched it the rest of the way. How do you hatch like a Komodo dragon-sized egg? What kind of egg do reptoids come out of? No, assuming he had a regular birth mother, his father could still be an alien. But look, Crazy Eye Bezos counting his cash. And you've got Bowie. I'm saying it's a storyline. It's a story we've been given. Jordan says maybe they came from Terra elsewhere. Well, okay, so Bowie's connection to Mars is also very significant too, because the New Age movement, and I would consider him to be a part of it. The New Age movement is all about transitioning us into the age of Mars. The age of Mars being the age of the god Horus, who the Egyptians associate with Mars. It's their version of Mars. And Horus is to replace Osiris. So the idea is that they're replacing the old system, the patriarchy, with this new, the crowned conquering child is what they call him, or it. You can't misgender the god of the New Age. It's an androgen. But I think it's bearing out. I think a lot of the predictive programming, the symbolism, I think it's all coming full circle here. Let me go through these notes really quick. Predictive scripting proves reality metascripting. Okay, so predictive programming. Once is a coincidence, twice maybe, but we're far beyond coincidence. That's why I call this coincidence theory 113. You would have to be a coincidence theorist to just minimize this as coincidences. But the news events that are directing the lives of the masses are scripted and presented as real by the same screens that present the entertainment media. And these storylines and narratives are reinforced by celebrities who bridge the gap between entertainment and pseudo-news. And this is all to immerse us in this pseudo-reality. The Metascript is an artificial reality construct. And let me just give you an example. So I think everybody here knows that global warming is a hoax, that the world will never flood because of our lack of, recycling centers. So the people who believe it's really going to happen, though, you could say they live in a fictional universe. They live in a universe where the sky is falling, and you don't. Now, you have the inside scoop. You know it's a computer model that gives them a fallacious worldview. They think it's science. So you have two different universes. They look the same from the outside, but one person is a little bit more scared, than the person with the other view on this thing. It's more or less you have to volunteer to be terrorized in the system, or you have to fall for it. So that's why I'm saying it's on that level. I think we can all understand that, yes, you can actually put people into an artificial reality construct. It's like a false alarm. This is why false alarms are so bad. You pull an alarm, everybody's in a state of fear. Now they're suggestible and they can be directed. And that's what we're dealing with here. Contrived emergencies used as a pretext to advance the growth of state. And my contention here, and I'm not going to go through all of it, is that we have had a good solid 100 plus years of transformative events leading to the end of the world, which was 2020. Now, as far as what comes next, I don't know. The world's still going, but 2020 was the end date of this script. So let me go ahead and go through a couple of things here. One thing, and we noted this last year, was that, and the media did this intentionally, 1968 was used as a template for 2020 repeatedly. Even as the year was coming to a close, we were seeing monoliths popping up all over the place, a reference to a 1968 movie. So it was 1968 films and 1968 political events that were reoccurring in 2020. Everything was just being, updated. I have a long list of these things. Let me go ahead and, because this is a whole nother live stream, I want to go through all of this stuff again, but I wanted to point out the patterns. For example, on the 75th anniversary of Hiroshima, you had 2 solid weeks of mushroom clouds. North Korea, Wuhan, Lebanon, UAE, Iraq, St. Paul, Minnesota, all with different explanations. This is from last year, and I want to point out just how sometimes this stuff is prescient. So we went over this last year, but it has relevance now. A couple of things I have to add to it. So we had, by counting back and by following this pattern, we had discerned that the number 57 is being used as code for a headshot, a crown shot. Crown, skull, basically even the head of a corporation. And one of the ways, well, there are so many ways that this was indicated, and I have them all listed here. But one of the ways more recently is this. When Trump was being impeached, the number of senators that voted to impeach him happened to be 57. 57 went against him. And all throughout this Metascript analysis, that number is consistently being used with deposing a leader. Anyway, the number 113, 911, and the reversals were encoded into so many of these major stories. Let's see. Trump may compare himself to Nixon in 68, but he resembles Wallace. I also took note of many of the strange coincidences happening in the world of sports that connect to the present day events unfolding. We noted too the Turner Diaries, the cover of which was manifested in the form of the McCloskeys, who are defending their mansion from BLM. Same costume. It looks like the same art department. Quite a lot of symbolism about the protesters regarding hands up, don't shoot. Dark Knight Rises. Now that's a movie that has an incredible amount of relevance. A lot of predictive programming that people have noted within the Batman movies pointing to the coronavirus. But there was something else worth noting too, is the burning bat symbol that they used for years as a phoenix. Now the phoenix is one of the reoccurring symbols. Right now we're going through this reset, and a phoenix, a reset, same thing. Burn down, build back better. One of the things about the Batman film, though, is they used the bat as a phoenix, a burning bat. Significance there, of course. The catalyst for the reset for the phoenix was the bat, the bowl of underheated bat soup. All right, so I'm going to go through the rest of this in detail over the coming days. I have quite a lot planned. One thing, and I want to say thanks to the callers, is we're going to start working with a better phone system. We can take multiple callers. I'll be able to have my guests take questions from you. You can call in directly. The phone number is not changing. We're improving the newsletters and the websites in general. Also, I'm working on developing the forum, making it more usable. So if you go to infiniteplane.media, the homepage will take you directly to the forum, which has more participants. It's getting more interesting. And many of the things we talk about, we're posting here. And you can go back and reference these things later if you choose, or add to it, even better. So there's a thread here going on about the Stanley Kubrick thing. Lots to look in, so feel free to go over there and add to it. Lean Dion says, the basis of Nolan's movie Tenet was climate change, but he slipped in a line about the complicated inverted action mess it was. Future humans go back because we ruined it. Yeah, every single science movie or science fiction movie starts off with after we ruined the world. They're always post-reset. So a final thing, this is a link that you can find over there on the forums, and I'll post it here if you want it. Alchemical Kubrick. So listen to this. This is another name of Stanley, whose last name is cubed brick. This is the black stone of creation. It's one of the main features in the Islamic religion, where a black meteorite sits near the Kaaba or cube of space in the Arabian city of Mecca. Kubrick has combined these many deeply held spiritual traditions and symbols and refashioned them into a monolith, or a stone that is constructed in the same dimensions as the movie screen on which it will be projected. Kubrick is revealing that he understands the great work. He has made the book of nature into film. The greatest works of art are attempting to achieve what Kubrick is attempting here. With the understanding of what 2001 is actually saying, he takes place alongside Da Vinci. See, this is fascinating because I've been saying that his moon landing video, his Apollo 11, would have been his magnum opus. He changed the world. He could consider himself to be the greatest living artist in that sense. So I don't think he was trying to tell the truthers the truth in The Shining or in 2001 Space Odyssey. I don't think he felt guilty, because his other movies go even deeper into this mind control. I mean, this is what MK Ultra is, if you ask me. You know, everybody existing in a state of total hypermediation. It's like being in a cult. Okay, one last interesting note, quote, it says here, the greatest transmutation of the human species is going to take place near the end of the 20th and beginning of the 21st century. Kubrick's date, 2001, is close to other dates prescribed by ancient alchemists. What are we to make of the date that he picked for the final transformation? So what is a transformation he's talking about? In alchemy, it's always this 2 into 1, and that would be the meaning of the two towers being melded into one. There's quite a lot here, but the idea is that the Metascript is actually a work of alchemy or something. Alchemical transformation, initiation. In other words, it has a mystical subtext. On my notes here, if you're looking at the screen, you see Luke Skywalker with his severed hand hanging from a cross. I have a lot of notes here on this that you may want to go through, just to show you how immersed we have all been our entire lives in this type of symbolism without even knowing it. And then once you can see through it in one film, it just really stands out in everything else. So there's the link. I appreciate everybody joining. This will be an interesting week. We're doing a lot, adding a lot to the program as far as how it's organized. So stay tuned. I'll put a link below if you want to join Patreon to get live stream notifications and so you don't miss anything. All right, thanks again. This is the Phoenix.
Just like the Phoenix, we rise from the ashes. They fake our reality with pawns, puppets, and actresses. It's plain to see what their tactic is. Corporate communist takeover. Treat us like clowns, burn it all down in a fiery makeover. Then they rebuild from the ash, leaving the past, and the past is the ticket to the last laugh. Phoenix, these maggots are more like scavenging vultures. They're twisting our culture. They got us living like drones in this dystopian vision of home. Just leave us alone. We're allergic to the bullshit, but they preach and they preach and they preach from on top of their pulpit.
Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. Don't take a genius to see the signs and symbols. They play with the Phoenix. We see the lies they swindle and we don't believe shit. Fun the jokes and riddles. Now things are far from civil. I'm trying to elevate my mental and find some meaning. Being stuck on feelings, cause it's so appealing. Now it's open season, the elite be scheming. Now I'm painting pictures on the ceiling like I'm a Venetian. Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. These bastards have got you frantic with their systematic Babylonian sex magic. It's tragic. These psychopathic fascists wreak havoc upon each and every demographic. They got you falling down a rabbit hole like Alice. Pass me my chalice, for this world is savage. Who's gonna do some damage? There's so many stages to their evil planning. We're trying to learn to speak a universal language. Sometimes it feels like it's more than we can manage. Don't take this life for granted. Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises from the ashes.
The harness roaring upward toward the heavens like a lioness. Heavy hurricane, rebirth of the initiates. Segment scorching, blazing, fire priestess. So fly, wings descend from the ashes. Just to be rising, since the hypnotizing. Pyro angelic frequencies that come from struggling. Hypnotized to introspective human consciousness. Sacred serpent lick their ears for hearkening.
The Phoenix rises from the ashes. The Phoenix rises phoenix rises from the ashes.
Rising from the deep, fly by just like a phoenix. Tips so wavy, got a bunch of jealous beaches. World gone crazy, it's a nightmare for the dreamers. They think it's safety, but it's really just obedience. Time to tell the secrets, listen bitch, we gotta speak it. See at least I like you breathing, there's illusion in your freedom. New normal, new world order, they've inverted all the meaning. So we do this for a reason, keep it big, yeah, that's a beacon, that's a beacon.
Phoenix rises from the ashes. Phoenix rises from the ashes. The phoenix rises from the ashes. The phoenix rises from the ashes.